we go. There we are. I suppose I could pause it for a moment.
Favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Item 6, fiscal year 25 budget hearing. 6.1, adopting resolution 2406.
So, after the budget is approved by the budget committee, the FTD Board of Directors holds a public meeting for the budget hearing. And the purpose of this hearing is to receive citizens' testimony on the budget approved by the budget committee. At the time the hearing was noticed, there were no major changes to the budget. So the budget that is here in the packet for the hearing is the budget that was approved by the budget committee. And then we would.
And they're gonna go back and kind of do a redo, get the newer numbers that we came up with the raising that.
Yes. So you're gonna have to open the budget hearing.
Oh, do I pause the regular meeting?
No,
Okay. I hereby open the UpTD budget hearing at 5:37. And we'll entertain any public comment.
No.
And or board discussion.
so have we already advertised for the other one or the second hearing?
We have not.
Okay.
We have not. We might not have to have one.
Okay. Because you can make adjustments up to 10%.
Would you like to comment? Natasha, you're the only other public here.
No, thank you.
Unless you would.
So Cheryl, do we need a new motion to approve the budget, the new budget with what the board approved scenario 6 at the last meeting?
So the way the information reads is that we have the hearing on the budget that was approved by the budget committee. And then we close the hearing and you have the opportunity as the board to make amendments or adjustments to the budget, either prior to adopting it or after adopting it, either way. So that's
within 10% of the total amount of that fund.
as long as it only says if it increases by 10%, it does not
Right, I think that's.
say anything about going down. Yeah, so that's the next thing on the agenda is to after we close the hearing, is to make any changes that are necessary.
Oh, the only thing I see on my agenda is adopting the resolution 2406.
Yes, that's right after we close the budget hearing.
So I guess I just want to make, I'm kind of confused about the process. So if I close the budget hearing, but we've made changes as a board in the previous meetings.
But we didn't actually make changes. We decided what changes we wanted to make after the hearing took place.
So this is just asking if there's any public comment on the changes that the board has made since the last budget hearing. Is that correct?
No, this is asking if there's any public testimony for the budget that was approved by the budget committee.
And we haven't had any?
No. All of our publics declined.
Okay, so I will hereby close the budget committee hearing at 5:40 PM. And I guess we will move on. So what is that?
On to 6.1.
6.1, adopting resolution 2406.
So after the FTD budget was approved by the budget committee and the budget hearing was noticed to the public, the board of directors was provided with additional information that requires changes to the budget. Desired changes may be made prior to or after adoption. And attached are summary pages for some of the scenarios provided by the finance manager for review and discussion. The first one is scenario 6, which has already been discussed by the board and selected during a special meeting as the optimal solution. And then there were additional scenarios 8 through 13 provided. And primarily, I requested that because at a prior meeting, we had opted to, guess it is in number 5, make some changes that were not included in scenario 6. So I wanted to show what that would look like at all different levels, so that you could make an informed decision, really. If we were to scenario number 8, that's the one with the highest increase in the medical costs to the employees, which would be $75 a paycheck and the increase to 20% to dependents. Each one that follows that then shows a different portion of that scenario. So reducing the medical cost to $50 per employee and 20% to dependents. And that would leave a total unappropriated reserve balance of $162,351. On scenario number 10, it is the medical cost at $25 per employee and 20% to dependents. And that would leave a total unappropriated funds of $139,601. Scenario 11 would be 75 to all employees, but no additional cost for the dependent coverage. So it would remain at the 15%. That would be 122,502 as the unappropriated funds. And then the number 12 is $50 for each employee per payday with no additional charge for the dependents. And that would leave us at 99,752. And the medical cost at 25 per employee with no additional cost to dependents would leave us at 7702. So those are significant changes to the unappropriated balance that would have been from number 6, which is 54,252. And with that, I leave it to you. Those were the only changes in those scenarios. Everyone made all of the adjustments that we had previously discussed. And just for a summary for those folks that are listening, what we found is that we've corrected our net working capital from 500,000 from 200,000. We found that there was an error in the stiff dollars that were included in the budget. And so that was corrected from 2 million. Well, it was 2,400,000 down to 2,040,000. So about a $400,000 adjustment down that we had to look at. How do we resolve this? Each scenario removes the 225,000 that was a capital project for training in the event that we get the electric buses. We corrected medical transportation income to volunteers only. And the current volunteers that we have right now, no projected, what if we get this? And the 0% COLA with no additional medical costs, removing the executive assistant, removing medical transportation, 3 drivers, removing 2 dial-a-ride drivers, and removing the 522,000 in capital reserve. And so basically those scenarios give you a range between a total unappropriated funds of 54,252 all the way up to 184,409.
The new scenario adds the match for the bus though, correct, Cheryl?
It does, but now we have an additional piece of information that we just received this last week for that as well. We had put, was it 6 vehicles to auction? 6? I think 6 or 7 vehicles to auction. And we ended up getting 24,000. And so the only thing that money can be utilized for is for match for a vehicle. So the total match for the vehicle is, I did check after Drew mentioned that, and it is 27,000 for that vehicle. And we just received 24,000 of the 27,000.
Yeah, it was 24,840 was the total.
So the
So we're
new
almost there.
bus is all but covered.
All but 3,000, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so that covers that.
Okay, I do have a question. Okay, so when we had agreed on scenario 6, the thought was that we wanted to impact the employees as little as possible. And if it was possible, I think we were trying to save from having to lay off positions. But it looks like in scenario 8, we have additional money. Well, I mean, even if we go to not as even as far as 8, but this additional money that we have here, is that enough to have saved a position that didn't need to be laid off? What is the cost of one employee for a year?
I'll defer to you. The challenge is we can't have 0 operating reserves, and that's what we're at right now. Is basically 0 operating reserves. Everything that we have is allocated. And if we select something that does not build our reserves, then it is not in the best interest of the district.
I think, if I recall correctly from some email I saw, was, ODOT's gonna do the monthly reimbursement for a little while. But,
Till August.
yeah, but we have to, start coming up with, enough reserve to for the 3 month, the typical quarterly reserve.
Right.
So we have to build our reserve to be able to fund.
So one position, to answer your question, it just depends on where they were at, when we hired them, like what their pay level would be, but it would range somewhere between probably 70,000 to 85,000.
And that includes benefits.
Yes.
So the 184, if we had gone with this scenario, would that have saved 2 positions? That is my question.
I mean, it could have, but we would have had 0 unallocated. We would have had no wiggle room for anything. We would have, if we had a big ticket item that came up.
Well, we had 54,000 that we were okay with here. I mean, if it was 70,000, that would be 44,000 that we have left over here. It's a $10,000 difference, but my main thing is, I think all of us were concerned at that meeting about laying people off. And if we could even save 1 job, right?
Can I share an update about the layoffs? So essentially, it only affected 3 people. We had a situation where one of the people that was laid off, we recalled within 2 days. One of the drivers was moved, he was offered and chosen, accepted the position downstairs, so that took another position. So that took it from 5 to 3.
That's awesome.
And one of the ones that we did lay off, it was really the best case scenario for him for his situation. So while it was not something that anybody wanted, it impacted less than we expected.
That's good.
I do think we need to build our reserves, and I don't know of any government agency that don't pay something for the, for their insurance. I mean, I was leaning toward number 10. It seemed to have the least impact to employees, but still bill us up to 139,000, which wasn't too far behind some of the other ones. Thought it's sort of out there.
I don't know. I'm still against putting this on the backs of the employees. We kind of, we talked about this at the last meeting, like, I understand we need to build a reserve, but I also know we've decided we are gonna be the premier employer in Douglas County and provide these perks for these employees, and they haven't done anything wrong. And we weren't gonna put this burden of the situation we're in on them because they haven't done anything wrong. And I will stand by that.
I think though our services could become worse should something happen, in which case the people that were gonna have even less service. And I really don't think it's unreasonable for employees to pay part of their medical costs. I don't think we can afford to be necessarily the premier employer, that we wanted to. We're not in that kind of a financial
Not yet
situation.
anyway, we could work towards that, but right now, I think, it's better to save the ship than to let it sink and let everybody just drown with it.
When, my concern is our payroll runs 85 to 90,000 every 2 weeks, you know? Not having enough reserve to be able to pay our payroll. In the event that, you know, there's a government shutdown and we don't get our reimbursements or, you know, things like that happen. And, that's my concern, is that we are gonna end up in that space where even though we put in all of this work, we're gonna end up not being able to continue to provide
You know,
service.
as well if they shut down.
Yep, we don't want that.
So can,
What'd you say the payroll was?
Between 85 and 90,000 every 2 weeks.
so can you tell me how scenario 6 and scenario 10 differ? Because there is scenario 6, you have removed 225,000 as a capital project. Then instead of that, you have added all income for cap.
It's this one, 25 to.
No, I see that, but what about this difference here? What is this? Added all income for cap and removed 225,000.
Oh, for the budget, we have to, put our capital expenses into it, even if we're not gonna utilize the, wait, where is it? Even if we're not gonna utilize the funding. So in the scenarios presented to you, at the end of the budget, we had capital projects and we had removed the 4 million from the capital projects in the scenario that was provided to you, but by law, we're required to have it in here because.
So this isn't accurate anymore. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it was accurate to show you what the impact would be,
Mhm.
and everybody wanted to see what it would look like without capital.
So what does this scenario look like now if we're putting that in the correct place?
It looks the same. So by adding the income for the capital, we just add the expense to, it just zeros it out. We
Okay,
just have to show it and then we
okay.
show it as an expense, so it just wipes it back out.
So that's still the same.
So
That,
still
it's just worded
essentially the
differently.
same. Mhm.
Okay. And then what's the other difference? The add 20 to 94 match for a bus. Is that happening no matter what on this scenario too?
On scenario 6, I think that we figured the 54,252 would include, we would have enough to pay that, so. That,
So the 54,000. You have to take 20,000 out, or that includes?
yes, no, you have to. take the
Wait a minute, we just,
But we
that's
just.
getting paid for by the
Yeah.
auction buses, so that would
That
still
was
remain.
changed. Yes,
So we still, in scenario 6, we still get the match for one bus and it doesn't change this dollar amount.
Right.
Is that correct? All right.
Just think of it as adding $3,000 instead of adding $20,000.
Yeah.
But we still have 54,000 in reserve. On scenario 6, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay.
$51,000.
Okay.
Yeah. Minus the 3.
You get my point.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so. What does 20% of dependents look like for this medical cost increase? For the employees? Is that's 20% of what, of their?
So right now they're paying 15, so it'd be adding an additional 5%. And I don't have those numbers because we haven't asked.
I don't have those
WHA.
numbers either, and I know the rates are going up this year by 9, I believe it was 9%.
So for, depending on what level that somebody is covering a family, it could be 5% of 9,000 spread over 26 paydays. Or it could be 5% of 11,000 or 12,000, 20,000 or 30,000. And those are the levels that people are covering their family members at.
Are you doing that math in your head right now? You wanna spit out those numbers?
I had the information that was provided at a previous board meeting, but I didn't realize.
You don't have it in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be roughly 40-something dollars, $50 a month, something like that. Something like
Depending
that.
on the
On the
level,
level, yeah,
yeah.
40 to 50, something in this range.
I think.
But it's
so.
per pay period, not per month.
Right.
Per pay period, right?
Yeah, that's a lot.
It's significant.
It is. I think in this economy especially, that's really hard for families and for anybody.
I can look up.
The,
What somebody is currently paying like on a, with that has a family.
the last
Do
three
you mind handling
scenarios,
that?
11, 12, and 13, do not have the increase to the family portion. I find myself conflicted because in January, we made a motion to establish a prudent reserve that was equal to 3 months of our expenses plus any capital outlay requirements. And that was make a motion that we establish this at this level. And so for me, that was my marching orders going forward, was to ensure that we could make that over a period of time, of course, not immediately. And so I don't know, I mean, is that still something that we're planning to do? Or is that no longer, are we reneging on that motion that we made back then? Because it's no less of a challenge than it was then. The difference is now the vehicles are paid for and we're not in fear. We were in fear of not being able to make payroll.
Well, I
So-
think you still are.
Yeah.
I think we didn't have all the information then either, like.
I know that came quite a bit
Yeah.
of information.
We didn't
Exactly.
realize in January we're in the financial crisis that we're in either when we made that motion, I don't think.
Exactly.
I don't anticipate coming out of it or really tremendous progress unless there's a transportation package that includes significant transit funding.
Exactly.
But we do need to build our reserves. I mean, we can't live on $50,000. That's not reasonable. I don't think ODOT would agree to that. Yeah.
So I'm looking at an individual who pays for a family and right now. They're paying about $152 a paycheck. For their benefits. So $152 a paycheck.
And we would add 75 to that?
Scenario 10 adds 25 and then another 5% for the dependents and then. The medical and then the insurances are going up 9%.
And that's how frequently are they paid? Every 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
Yeah, so that's like $300 a month.
Going,
Currently.
And it would currently, and that would
450.
increase, yeah.
What is your thing?
Well, the amounts
152.
were, that we've been calculating off of were the current, what's gonna be in effect as of July 1.
But this is also taking into consideration that we're not giving them a COLA. I mean, when we had discussed all of these scenarios before, we were weighing things like, okay, well, we're not gonna give them a COLA, but we're not going to increase their medical costs either. That was something that we were weighing out together, and now we're not weighing those things out. Now we're saying, well, we've already said no to the COLA, so now we're deciding whether or not we're gonna increase their medical costs. And I think that if we're gonna have a conversation about this, we should open it all back up, have the full conversation. Because otherwise, it's just, we're sort of chipping away at the benefits provided to these people.
I agree with that.
What do they pay, now? He said,
This person's paying $152 a pay period. I just did the math. If we added the 25, the insurance is going up 9%. So we're looking at probably about $200 a paycheck. It's gonna go up.
That's a lot of money.
it is.
Did that
Another $100
include the 5% on top of the 9?
Kind of, I mean. Yeah. It'd be a rough estimate of probably a family, $200 a paycheck.
Maybe I did the math wrong, but if you're paying, if the insurance coverage is 11,009 something for the covering the.
I'm just looking at what she's currently paying, like right now on her pay stubs.
So you're looking at somebody that's covering
for
their
a family.
entire family.
Yes.
Ooh. So that is the one that runs about 21,000. That's 3,150 a year divided by 26 paychecks. $121 a paycheck at the 15% to cover the entire family. And that's
Right now, she's paying $144 a paycheck, and it's at the 20%.
okay. So then that maybe the information to me on the compensation sheet is incorrect.
or maybe she has other little services, I don't know, vision or dental or
Well, yeah.
those kind of things.
Regardless,
Probably-
it's gonna hit every employee different, but it's still gonna be across the board an increase for everybody.
Which is what I was looking at, an equitable increase across the board for everyone. And that's why there are multiple scenarios for you to choose from so that you could see the impact if we did any one of those. But the final scenario at scenario 13 is no additional cost for dependent coverage, and it is $25 per employee, which is pre-tax. $25 per employee per pay period. And that. I mean, if my choice is to have a job next year at this time or to not pay anything for medical for the next 6 months and lose my job, hands down, I'm choosing, I'll pay something so that I can have my job this time next year.
So 13, I just wanna make sure I'm understanding correctly, is no increase in the percentage. It's still 85-15 split
That's correct.
and $25 per employee per paycheck.
That's correct.
Okay.
Doesn't add much though.
About 23,000.
Seems like you ought to be able to cover a payroll.
Here's my problem with this, is the cost of living has gone up for everyone. We're not giving them a raise this year, and we already made that decision to not do that. And then on top of it, we're gonna charge more for medical, so they're losing money this year working this job. I don't think that's fair. I don't think I can get behind supporting that. Even if it means increasing the reserve. I think we made the decision last time that we didn't want to negatively impact the employees, and this is negatively impacting.
We don't have step increases in here, right?
Pardon?
There are no step increases in here.
Was still what you just said. Was. I'd rather, if it were me, I'd rather pay a little extra to be able to keep my job for next year. Otherwise, if I don't. You know, if I like my job and I really don't wanna look for a new one. And I understand the situation, it's not my fault, but. I'd rather keep my job and sacrifice a little along with the rest of everybody else and just say, you know what? All hands on deck here. You know?
Yeah.
And sacrifice a little bit to keep my job for next year or the years beyond and just,
You try to make it up in a future COLA.
right, you're supposed to try to. keep
I
the-
feel, sorry, Janice, I didn't mean to interrupt
But I
you. Go
can
ahead.
kind of see both sides.
I feel like morale's probably already down because we've laid off drivers. And to put that on the employees that are already feeling the pressure of, hey, I might lose my job. And then I'm gonna have to pay more and I'm really not gonna get a raise. I feel like it's gonna push people out, honestly. To go, if they have a CDL, they can go get a job anywhere.
Yeah,
I don't like the idea of pay more or lose your job. That sounds a little, oh,
no, that's not what we're
Harsh.
saying, we're just saying, you know, there's.
It is what we're saying though, Janice.
Hard times for everybody. I'm just saying that would be me, I'd be like, okay, I'm loyal. I'm going to do what I need to do to make it work and, keep my job.
They're
So what
already
happens if
paying
they-
more for inflation for everything else that they're paying for in their personal lives.
I guess there's two risks, and one,
Irrelevant.
we've somewhat mitigated with a bunch of new buses and stuff, right? So our maintenance costs should be down on there. I guess the only piece that worries me is kind of on the federal level. And, you know, Congress does a shutdown. And we have an election, big national election this cycle. That's the only piece worries me. So we shut down, you know, they're not gonna, it'll be shut down for a week or do whatever, but what does that look like? How do we react to that as an agency? What is that, what is the financial impact to us?
If we don't pay employees for a week while we're shut down.
Well, if they shut down, that means there's no money flowing to ODOT, which means there's no money, so I guess it's maybe timing, right? Potential timing, so I guess, you know, if we're expecting and needing, because we have to have the quarterly reports in on time and funding from ODOT like that. And if it happens to hit in a cycle in that piece, that component, then I think we're in trouble, because we won't make payroll, I think is what I heard. So there's a risk, to doing that.
But there's also the
This-
chance if there is a
We can start
shutdown
back up.
and we have to lay drivers off for a whole week, everybody in the company, who's to say any of those drivers are gonna come back? If they find something else that's not a government job, where they don't have to pay for that extra increase in insurance and they get better in benefits.
Who's to say those are out? I just thinking that, you know, I mean, we've gotta be thinking about this as a company, so. If we fall, only if, I mean, it's kind of, maybe that's a big if. That's an if Congress does it, it's an if it happens to fall in that short time period. We can make adjustments in the future, I guess, if we need to as well.
I definitely agree. I think that we can pivot when we know what we're up against. We don't really know. We have a lot of what ifs. So it's like the 5 vehicles that we're taking on that. What if somebody else doesn't buy them? Like, we're sort of in a risky situation there too. But I think where my frustration is with this is the last time we talked, and I get it, we have more information now. But when we talked about this before, I specifically said, is there any scenario where we do not have to lay people off? And this number here, this 184,000 in reserve, tells me that there is a scenario where we didn't have to lay somebody off. And so the reason I made the decision that I made before for scenario 6 was because it was the best case scenario for the people who were going to remain, while also understanding that we had to lay people off.
Well,
which
that's
was
not
very difficult.
extra money from what I understand, that's reserve money.
That was for the wheelchair, wasn't it? The wheelchair stuff that was costing us
Yeah.
$100,000 a year,
Yeah, so
beyond
there's,
what we were paying. Or
But we
getting.
have, that's my point, is we have new information now, so we should really probably go back through all of these scenarios and see.
we could do another meeting. This doesn't have to be done tonight. There is more information further into the packet that is, again, information that we didn't have, and it's part of what's taken me so long. Trying to present a stiff project, you know, what does this look like, you know? And so there, I know we've discussed it before, but when the stiff plan was required to be into ODOT for approval, that was in the January, February timeframe. And then it went into the plan, I believe that was March, April timeframe, and it was executed as a plan July 1. Okay, so in the interim between when we sat down with our stiff stat committee and we allocated funding to the 7 projects that there is funding allocated to, then we found that we had to ask ODOT to transfer the money from a reserve project. It was the project to do the YMCA collector here in Roseburg. And we had to transfer money, operations dollars, from that reserve into our operations in order to be able to continue operating. Was it $518,000? Was that the number? Something along those lines? That we had allocated into our stiff plan as money that we were gonna be using in this biennium. And then it got used before we even got the plan into place. And then there was the STF funding that we were still getting at about, I believe it was 67,000, maybe 70,000 per quarter. And so I was not aware that we had utilized all of the STF funding. So multiple projects have STF funding as other state funding in our stiff plan. And we don't have that funding. It was utilized before the plan went into place. The list just keeps going. The more I dig, the more I find. We know now that going forward, when we have a stiff plan put into place, that when it goes into effect, we need to go back and figure out right then and there what there is left. Do we actually have this money that's rolling forward? Because we had $518,000 for operations projects that we rolled forward that we had already spent by the time the plan went into place. So my concern is for the good of the company. And I realize that that might be painful for us as employees. I don't want us to go off the cliff. And I have not said this in a public meeting because I feel I don't want it to seem like fear mongering. But we're in a spot where we need to figure out where we are. And I mean, Sherry's been doing some really good work, getting some things together, you know, now we know what our actual losses were for the wheelchair program. I was operating on the assumption that we were breaking even with the wheelchairs and we were continuing to make the profit for the volunteer drivers. Not one time was it ever stated to me that the profit from the volunteer program was completely covering all the losses for the wheelchair program, and we only made $13,000 running those two programs. I had no idea. I was under the impression that we were making $100,000 in profit, and we were operating based on those assumptions. I was operating on the assumption that we still had $200,000 worth of STF funding that we had in reserve that we could allocate to those projects. I did not have accurate numbers, and that is on me. That is on my shoulders, and I get that. But I don't want us to go under.
All we're doing here is getting more iterations of the same numbers. I think we have enough information to call the question.
And we don't have to choose one of these tonight. It's information. You know, the budget can be adopted as it is, and changes can be made to it before or after you adopt it. It is entirely up to you. And I appreciate you letting me say my piece.
Do we want to table this until we can see all of these scenarios with the additional information that was brought forward today? Because it's gonna change scenario 1 through 7 as well.
You're talking about the bus, the 17 or whatever it was, 27,000.
Well, scenarios, we're kind of in that spot. We've already laid off the drivers. We've already made those moves. So,
All these new scenarios, we're taking scenario 6 and just changing the medical portion to the employees. That's it.
And now that we've sold all those other excess buses at auction, you said it's only $3,000 more that we need?
Yeah.
So scenario 6 leaves us still with a $51,000 reserve, correct?
yes.
And we can make
I'm still
later.
comfortable with moving forward scenario 6. Based on
Does
that
that mean-
information.
Does that mean? Following my pocket anyway. Does that mean that, see, the budget, takes out the wheelchair, right? There's no wheelchair in there, so it builds in $100,000, I'm sure, profit on the volunteer piece in there.
It does.
Did those rates ever change on the volunteer piece? I know it's kind of a bid, I think.
So what I have been doing is we get the rate sheet from Bay Cities. And then, yes, it does change. But we bid in such a manner that we are gonna get the greater majority of the rides from 5 miles out. So we get the pickup and we get all of the mileage for those rides. And that seems to work really well. We had to drop our bid by, I believe it was 50 cents a pickup in order to be able to fill all of our volunteer drivers manifests.
Does it more?
Cheryl, one question I had on that is, so like with our fixed route and having to have the demand response, is there any sort of requirement with the volunteer program that we have to have the wheelchair program with it? That was one thing I meant to ask at the last meeting. We don't
No.
have,
No, but we did meet with Bay Cities regarding the payment discrepancies. And they were asking us if we would revisit looking at how much it would take for us to bring some wheelchair drivers back. And so that was not something that I had enough time to put a decent scenario together for you before this meeting. But it is something that they're asking us to do. And with the numbers that we are able to get through June with basically no overtime in our demand response program, we'll be able to get a little more accurate numbers about for what that would look like. And that would be one of the requirements is if we were to bring it back, it would have to be with the understanding that the drivers could not be scheduled for overtime.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Is there anything, you know, with the emphasis on carbon reduction? Are there any carbon credits, carbon offsets, that where transit could be used as, you know, to get funds for offsetting single-use vehicles or single?
I
facilities or
do
anything?
not know. I don't know if as a government entity that we can actually utilize those kinds of credits.
There used to be, we used to do that,
The Betsy
time
program.
ago. I don't remember what it was, but it was probably 15 years ago.
Mhm. Yeah, we used to do
Like
that.
a mitigation bank, is that what you're talking about, Mike?
Yeah, it used to be that, you know, companies want to reduce it, they don't actually reduce it, they pay money. That money goes to different agencies and then they can use the reduction factor from whatever, from people that are doing it, and they make money and they get credits.
Yeah, no, I do not know, and I'll have to look into that.
I think a revenue source.
Ah. So there is a possible revenue source, but it wouldn't be for a number of months, and that is a partnership with ODHS. The lady that came and did the presentation for us on the first Thursday program, Catherine Garland. I had a meeting with her and we discussed a pot of money that they have available. They have done some research and found that the number one out of the top four factors that can keep people out of the system, the number one issue is transportation. And so we had a discussion about the possibility of utilizing our volunteer drivers, or one of the things that was put on the table is what would it look like if they were to fund one or two drivers for us. So
That's the better one,
mhm,
because if
Yeah.
we're already filling up the calendars for the volunteers, then we don't
Yeah.
wanna, otherwise we're not making any more money than what we've already budgeted, really.
right. Yeah, so they are gonna pitch the scenarios that we talked to their group, and then the group will send an application that they said is a real low bar application. That it's like 6 or 7 questions, and you answer the questions about how the project that you're presenting would benefit not only your own company, but the community. And then they decide how much money that they will give you.
So that's potential of 150,000, would you say 75,000 a driver?
Yeah. But that's still a number of months out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
UCC, do they pay a set fee? Or the student, or is it just a student pass that
they do $15,000, is it a year or a semester? A year,
A year.
a year.
for the UCC?
Mhm, and then
Has that ever changed? Seems like that's what it started out.
that is what it started out. Yeah.
That was 20 years ago.
So yes, they still pay 15,000 a year, and they also pay $50 for a pass that's not a season pass, but a semester pass. So their students can purchase the semester pass for $50.
So that's 8 or 9 months.
Mhm.
That's not-
So
4 months. It's one time in school.
So there aren't any other scenarios that we need to bring back, because these are all the scenarios. Based off of what we have already, which is that we already laid people off.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the way I'm feeling about this, and obviously everybody else gets to decide too, but I'm still comfortable with scenario 6. So I would probably be looking to table this if we can change this at any point in the year. Like you said, we can always move from the budget if we have more information later, but I don't think I've received anything compelling enough to make me want to add more cost onto the employees when we didn't give them a raise and we laid 5 people off.
I think the only thing about waiting later is the later you wait, the less you can raise, because there's less year to do that in.
Yeah. When we had to decide what to compromise, we made that decision already, is sort of how I feel, and it's like. I just don't know what's compelling enough to change that, to add a second layer of cost onto people.
I guess the other thing is stiff funds could come in higher than
They could.
projected too, so,
I'm
which
good
I think
with
they
moving on to
typically
6.
do, right?
They're actually projecting them at a lower
I know
rate this
they're
time.
projecting, but the actual sometimes is a lot of times more than what the projection is.
Right,
I believe.
and that's why we built into our plan a higher number. But that's just a plan so that we can utilize it if it comes in.
But in the budget,
We've budgeted the lower
the
number
lower number, so it's potential we have a higher number there too.
by 400,000.
Yeah,
Well, my feeling is if we, I mean, even adding that cost on, it's only adding $20,000 to our reserve, so. Weighing those options, I feel like scenario 6 is knowing that we're gonna build that reserve in for the buses. Leaving us with 51,000 instead of 54,000, knowing that information, I'm still comfortable with scenario 6.
So if we're not changing anything. We really don't need a motion other than, I guess, to table this. Is that correct, Sarah?
Yeah, I think well, we would make a motion to adopt that resolution 2406 with scenario 6, knowing that we're gonna take $3,000 out of it for the bus.
406.
But we already did that.
No, this is adopting the budget.
The budget, including
Oh.
scenario 6
I
into the
see.
budget, incorporating scenario 6 into the budget.
I see
With
the
the,
difference.
with the caveat of the bus match of 3,000.
Oh, yes, we're adding the bus match. Okay, well,
Call the question.
then I will make that motion. You guys wanna help me word it?
Adopting resolution 2406. Incorporating scenario 6 with the caveat that we are incorporating the bus match of $3,000.
Perfect. Thanks, Sarah.
You're
That's the
welcome.
I second.
motion.
So I have a motion by Michaela and a second by Doug. Is there any further discussion?
Well, I know it's gonna pass, but I'm just not sure on that. I see your point, and I see that there's potential for. Other funds during the year coming in, whether it's additional stiff funds or DHS or other things.
Well, and we
But
can
it-
change it later if
Yeah,
we need to.
yeah, but they're not sure things. That's the kind of what worries me. And. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I hate to add more onto that. I hate that it's. Per check, that's just a lot of money. So I mean, I hate that part. At the same time, I recognize we're just in trouble as an agency, and I almost feel like, yeah, we make it up later.
Maybe the economy will significantly improve.
I don't know. So I might not, but I know it's gonna pass, and I understand where you're going, so, yeah. I'll just throw that out there.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I'm gonna go nay.
Two.
Motion passes.
Keep your fingers
Moving-
crossed.
Moving on to item 7, public comment for on agenda items only.
How about you, Natasha?
No comments. Thank you.
Seeing none, we will move on to item 8, old business, updated bylaws.
So, during the April 8th regular board meeting, the board approved and adopted resolution 2401. Adopting the UpTD action plan. And then, they also adopted resolution 2405, resolving to update the bylaws to move monthly board meetings to the third Monday of each month. So the attached, bylaws on the first page, first paragraph, the third line down, the only wording that is changed in this is, instead of on the second Monday, it says on the third Monday. The board typically meets monthly on the third Monday at 3076 Northeast Diamond Lake Boulevard. I also eliminated most of the highlighting that was on the previous version, but I missed a spot, so I'll do that.
Is it necessary for us to have our board meeting date or time in here? Yeah.
Required by law.
Good to know.
Other things we learn, huh?
Every organization is different.
That's
You're-
required for all government agencies.
Right. All right,
I don't-
so.
Is there a motion to approve? Do you need a motion, Cheryl, or?
Oh, no,
Yeah.
you guys already made the emotion. This is just for your, records, yes.
Perfect, yeah, I gotta get rid of my old bylaws now.
Okay, then we will move on to item 9, new business, UpTD action plan, internal controls, job descriptions for Becky.
I'm not really sure. You guys were all sent the job descriptions a couple weeks ago. I guess just really if you have any comments or feedback regarding those. I'm working on the policies. I'm on page 56 of 97 of the handbook. Hoping to have that done sooner rather than later. There are a lot of new policies that are legally required to be in our handbook, I found out. Yeah, just following along, but the job descriptions, I have September for those, so the job descriptions were the very first action item that had to be done.
So I was swapping a couple of my employees' job duties,
Oh, okay.
doing some different things, and so I looked at them and I had a bunch of comments, but I put them down for you in
Oh.
writing.
I did come up with these and I sent them to the people that perform the duties because I'm like, I don't do your job. Is there anything you would change? And then Randy approved, his department, the people that he oversees, and then they were all sent to Cheryl also to review.
So,
Before they were sent to you guys.
yeah, so generally I just had, things around managers, essential duties, recruiting, the interviewing, the
Okay,
training, the mentoring,
Okay.
evaluating subordinates and stuff like that, so things
Okay.
around that.
what, can you be a little more specific for me?
Well, this one was under the finance manager. I
Okay,
actually separated them by different managers.
oh, okay, oh, you
So-
typed up notes for me, okay,
I did,
okay,
so I thought
sorry.
it'd be a bit easier
Yeah.
than reading my scribbles and stuff like that and down there. So if, for example, in the finance manager, her duties also need to include audits and contracting, for the auditor and stuff like that. So it seems like there'd be some pieces in there.
Okay,
Not that it did, but.
I thought it did too.
I might have missed it. I might have missed it. but okay.
I.
Preparing the departmental budget. So usually, I don't know how you do it here, so it looked like to me when I read this, that she prepares the budget for everybody. So it's nice to have department heads to prepare their budget, give them a dollar to have them prepare a budget, and then you know, the finance manager works with each of those managers for their department to put those budgets together, so that the managers have some responsibility for their budget and are looking at things.
We do have some meetings, before we
Yeah,
present the
it
budget.
wasn't in there, so I just,
Yeah.
anyway, so just, again,
Okay.
suggestions, so if you
Yeah.
choose not to do that, that's fine, but, let's see, list primary so there's somewhere under the duties there. It lists, like primary contacts, it just seemed like it was in a weird spot. Nobody else has anything like that, I thought that could be moved somewhere else, it wasn't really a duty, it's just
Okay.
the contact. There were some things around, like skills, abilities, and something else, something abilities and skills. Anyway, and the finance manager, there's no abilities, mentioned in there. So it lists the title, and it lists two of them, but it doesn't list all three. And then what positions does this person supervise? And what position does this person report to? And that'd be the same on all of them, actually. And then I would just add general, this is also I put on every one of them, that really they ought to have something in there that says they comply with UPTD policies and procedures. So as an
Is that not in the
expectation.
essential duties? I thought the essential duties were the same.
I missed it. But anyway, so I looked at it a couple times and I
Okay.
didn't see them.
Okay,
So maybe it's written differently or something, and maybe that's why I missed it, but I didn't see that. Under the HR director, HR director. Oh, yeah, so this is, states the position is responsible to interview, hire, and train staff. And, while I agree, there's a huge, responsibility for part of that. It really, I think, is the responsibility of the manager to do that with a lot of help from the HR manager on all of those.
yeah, no, like, what's the training, I set up the training for like the online training for the specifics, and then Randy does the training for the drivers.
But it just looked like only the HR director did all of that stuff and the other managers didn't.
Okay,
And so there's stuff in the other ones that say, hey, they do this, add this to theirs.
So maybe it just needs to say onboarding or something.
However they want to do it.
Or
It also
coordinate.
talks about handling discipline
You
and
could say,
termination, which
And
there's a role.
coordinates training
Yeah.
or something like that, since you're, right, you're not necessarily training them, you're coordinating training
no,
for them, so,
yes, coordinating.
yeah.
And then it says this person interviews, disciplines, and terminates staff. And I don't think that's the case either. I think those are manager responsibilities to interview, discipline, or terminate staff. But there's a huge responsibility with the HR manager to provide that support to that manager to make sure that policies and procedures are being followed and for even participating in those processes. But the responsibility should be that of the manager.
Yes, however, if the manager's gone, that falls back on me. The way it works now is Randy comes to me and says, this is my recommendation, and usually it's a big write-up of his
Sure.
investigative notes.
Uh-huh.
And then I type up the termination letter, and then we bring in the supervisor, him and myself. We all sit in on the termination with the employee.
Yeah, I'm just saying that ultimately, it's his responsibility as the manager to terminate or to hire or to discipline. It's your role to assist him in writing that up and making sure that all those things are followed. And did you do this and to investigate and
Yeah,
all those things. So you're a huge support. I don't want to take that away. But it's the responsibility of the manager is all I'm saying. And the way it's written here, it looks like it was just yours and it wasn't in their descriptions.
okay,
This position didn't have any knowledge, skills and abilities broken out like all the other positions.
okay.
So there's just a big list. It didn't have anything there, so it's a different format. And then this one under education and experience. I just think we need to raise the bar on this one. The way it's written, it does not require a college or even a high school degree. And,
On the HR one?
yeah,
What?
Degree
it
in-
has a degree preferred, it's not required.
Okay,
And then it doesn't require a high school degree either. in there
Well,
then.
hold on, I think it's just a wording thing on that, degree in human resources or related field.
Preferred.
But is that the related field is preferred or the degree is preferred?
I would think the degree is preferred, but I
right,
would think that you know, anyway, it just said the other way that you could qualify as a person could be. They
No,
just had
they-
to have the human resources role, so maybe I'm administrative staff and I'm processing something and I had a human resources role. And I did it for 5 years, and now I can qualify, it just seemed like the bar was too low the way it was written, so I agree, it needs to probably require a degree or certain. A lot of, you
I
know,
thought
skill.
I'm not,
The preferred is what drew me away,
I thought
saying
it
it's
said
not
or so
required.
many years of experience.
It does. I think it's just the way that the way this is written, you could interpret it to say the degree is preferred or the type of degree is preferred. So maybe it could just be reworded.
Yeah,
Because you're basically saying you either need to have a degree
Mhm.
or you need to have 5 years experience, right? Isn't that sort of what you were getting
And
at?
or, yeah,
Yeah,
so that wasn't clear,
okay.
the way it was written in there. And then what position the person supervises and who supervises, so if you supervise anybody. Oh, and who supervises your position, so again, that's a comment that's
That's
on all of
on the
them.
first page though.
It is?
Report to,
It's right here
yeah,
on the top there, but I'm just suggesting you move it to the body. Cause this almost looks like it's a memo or something, you know, it's real easy to skip right by it, at first I never saw it.
okay.
Cause I thought it was just a memo or something there, so I would just move it to the body, somewhere in the body of the thing. Adding compliance with the policies and procedures, under the operations manager. Under essential duties, I don't remember what I was thinking here, but identify to whom he advises, oh yeah, so he advises on the development of connection centers, who's he advise? So it wasn't really clear what that meant. So is he advising the general manager, is he advising somebody in the community? A city, a county, what does that mean? I didn't know.
I'll have to ask Randy. I'm
Okay.
gonna assume it's the bus drivers.
Okay, I don't know. And then to whom does he compiles data and presents reports to who? So it didn't mention that, I don't know who's, you know, I assume could be the board, it could be management team, it could be.
I guess whoever requested
Some,
it, yeah.
a city council or something, I don't know, you know, so I don't know who that is. So somehow that needs to be fine, and then there were no skills listed under his, so he had the abilities and the. Whatever the other one is, knowledge or. I can look right there.
and abilities.
Says knowledge, skills and abilities. So he had knowledge and skills, but he doesn't doesn't have any abilities. So just making sure that those are all consistent, so it wasn't laid out there. Skill, he had any skills, sorry, no skills. And then, let's see, so it should be responsible to develop, not assist in the preparation of the departmental budget. I thought you should have something under duties regarding making presentations to the board.
For Randy,
For Randy, yes, it's still Randy.
or operations.
Operations
Yes.
manager. And then I would suggest that he may fill in as the acting general manager in the absence of the general manager. So if Cheryl's gone, you know, he's the one with all the knowledge of transit and all the rules and requirements and things like that. He's probably somebody that we've looked to, so doesn't mean that. You know, she's gone for a couple days up in Salem or something like that, and he needs to be it, but she may be gone for a week on vacation and say, hey, you know what, I'm just gonna delegate my duties to Randy, and that way Randy can sign or Randy can approve. There's no having to wait for Cheryl to return, he can act in that stead with that authority. And then under education and experience, it spells out that he has to have an associate or a bachelor's degree. But either does not require any experience. So typically, it might be, you have to have a bachelor's degree. And maybe you say, I need a bachelor's degree and I need an associate's, start with associates. I need an associate's degree and maybe 2 years of experience. Or you can have a bachelor's degree and 1 year of experience, and the flexibility part of that experience. And there was no experience, it just says, hey, it's an associate or bachelor's.
Mhm.
So I would just suggest changing that.
Sure.
Blah, 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 blah. And then even that seemed pretty minimal for that level of position for just a year or two, when you consider, you know, the HR is 5 and finances, I think 5, and so. You know, it's probably better to just, instead of graduating with a degree. And now you're eligible, it's probably better to, if you had a degree, but you also had some more experience than just a year or two. And then under physical requirements, the position's only required to lift 20 pounds, when everybody else is required to lift 30. So it's just different,
So. Sorry, I just caught up to his
Okay.
on Randy's. You
Yeah.
said there was, it says minimum of 3 years.
or a minimum of 3 years with it. It talks about a degree or a
Right,
minimum of 3 years. I'm just, if it talks about an associate or a bachelor's, so why would I go get a bachelor's if all I need is an associate?
so change the or to
And I-
the end.
Or just.
No,
don't
no.
even
I
say
think you should say,
bachelor's.
it should have like an
Okay.
associate plus maybe 2 or 3 years of experience or a bachelor's and then also some experience, but less. In other words, the bachelor substitutes for part of the experience.
So you don't wanna hire anybody out of college?
I wouldn't for transportation for an operations manager, no experience.
For what Randy does, they.
No,
have
not
experience. He, yeah.
You need experience in your position at 5, and I think Cheryl was 5 or 7 or something, and then Cheryl's had some, so I would suggest that it's more than just a year or two, that it's, maybe it's an associate's plus, 5 years experience or 4 years experience, and it's a bachelor's plus.
Well,
2 or
think
3
about
years
that
experience.
though, like if you've already gone to college, you already got your degree. Are you going to take a job for lesser, well, to get that experience?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, you start toward the bottom and you work your way, you
Well, I'm just saying-
progressively build up.
Yeah.
So you might start as a driver and then you might
Sure.
get transit supervisor, and then now it's like, hey, I've got some experience.
Because there's things you cannot learn in
Yeah.
college that you have to learn on the job.
Yeah,
And it's crucial.
Somebody with an associate's and 15 years of experience, I would take any day over somebody with a
Yeah.
bachelor's in 3 years.
yeah, yes, I agree. And you're not gonna have there's no degrees in transit. And
So
transit's
then-
extremely complicated.
Then why are we making that your requirement?
So Randy and I sat down when we did his and kind of went off of what he used at Mountain Lion.
Mhm.
And he said, this is kind of, and so, because I had to start from scratch using basically a job announcement, and so.
No,
I
they're really good.
I was.
So Don,
happy-
Don not needing to demean me at all here. Yeah,
And Randy was like, he was good with it, and so I was like, all right, I'm good with it, then like, you know what you do better than I do. And I mean, his knowledge is just so above par.
Yeah.
That I was okay with it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
so I would just look at something in there.
And.
You guys can look that
sometimes it is. No, it's fine.
I've never submitted a paper to this board.
Well.
I think just my question though is for the supervisor, what are we getting out of putting the degree in there? You're saying the experience is
Operations manager.
the most important thing.
It really is. I
So,
mean,
What do we need in terms of college education? Are we looking for things like
It wouldn't
Excel,
hurt
like
to have
reading spreadsheets, like that kind of
Good
stuff?
business sense to, because Randy does a lot of cost analysis.
Mhm,
He does a lot of cost analysis, like for the run cuts and things like that.
mhm.
And Excel is huge. That's what he
Yeah.
uses for our bids.
And planning, business administration, I mean, there's all sorts
So
of things.
those sorts of things, I mean, technically, you can self-teach all of those things. You can look up how to do that on
can.
YouTube these days,
You can.
so. But, I mean, maybe we should include those in the things that are necessary to do the job, if it's not the degree. Like, don't
It's not,
create
it just seems like any
unnecessary.
manager
for-
position, you almost see that a degree is
It's
preferred.
typically a degree with some experience,
Yes.
some little bit of experience, or a bunch of experience.
Yes.
That, like you said, somebody with 10 years is gonna be a lot better than somebody with 1 or 2, even if they've got a
Yeah.
degree.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I just don't wanna exclude people that are a good fit, if,
No,
Well,
I understand.
can I say something?
yeah.
Sorry.
Yes,
So
you
I
can,
just,
Mayor.
I know from like ODOT experience, to be a manager at ODOT, you only have to have 7 years of management experience. You don't necessarily have to have a degree. That's the only requirement is 7 years of management experience.
Yeah.
And coming from somebody that doesn't have a degree and have moved my way up the corporate ladder, I feel, and I mean, I'm not discounting the degree part of it, but because I feel like, yes, but these days a degree isn't necessarily necessary if you have the experience. So maybe we could put in something that is like an equivalent of this much experience in the field.
Mhm.
I think they have
versus
that.
a degree.
So should we take the degree off of all of our
No.
positions? No, just that one?
No, I would keep the degree on all of them.
A lot of times they say.
But you,
degree
but it's,
with
or
this
it's a,
much
or you
experience.
substitute with these many years of experience.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't, it's not a, it's probably a degree plus some experience, because there's validity to the experience, but
Yeah.
it's less, or it's without a degree, it's just more years, a little more years of experience.
Okay.
Yeah. I agree with that.
I'm one of those people too
Yeah,
that
that's all I was saying.
became a graphics designer because I
So you read that into
Well,
it.
I think it's
became
important
one.
for this area too. You don't necessarily have, yeah, I mean, you have people that have degrees, but not everybody does, and you don't.
Right.
Like, if you have people that have good experience, you don't wanna,
Well, and then there's,
Create a
and
barrier
then there's
for
the
that.
talent part. There's people that just have natural
Yeah,
talent for
exactly.
things and you want those people.
exactly,
Yeah.
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 I just don't wanna stop us from hiring
No.
good people.
No, we always need to have that or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. or-
Yeah. I agree.
And then he had like only 20 pounds, so everybody had to lift 30, but he drives a bus, and I wasn't sure if things that he had to lift or something, if there was even a bigger requirement because of that, but.
Oh,
But
yeah.
he had a lesser requirement than anybody I already had to lift. so.
The hood on the bus is a 60-pound pull.
So I don't know if that's the same as lifting or not, but when anyway, there probably ought to be something then, since he's driving.
We can change
Make all things equal.
There's a typo, I'll let you read that.
Make sure those are consistent with their actual job titles though, because you could see like an increase in your insurance premiums if everyone has a higher
Lifting.
lifting thing. So make sure they actually need to do it. Don't use office staff to like move boxes. That sort of thing.
It's.
Okay, under the general manager, essential duties should probably also include serving as the agency's budget officer.
Okay.
And then there's well, was it, let's see. It's a typo. Anyway, there's a coordinate and make informed, running, I think it's supposed to be smoothly, but anyway, my comment in here when I wrote this up was, how is this different from a similarly described duty under operations manager? And maybe it's the same thing, but they're just applied to different groups of people or something, so.
Okay.
Under knowledge, skills and ability, I just would suggest deleting the text after that title. And the underlined word knowledge, because no other position description includes that type of comment. So just making it consistent with all the other ones, it was kind of an odd thing. And then. This one had a bachelor's degree, each had 10 years of experience. Should probably include a bachelor's plus experience or 10 years of progressive management experience. So in other words, no degree, but you know, so you want, if you have a bachelor's, we don't want you to just have a bachelor's, we want you to have a bachelor's with some experience.
So like a bachelor's and 5 years experience. or 10
Exactly,
years. Okay.
or 10 years of experience,
Okay.
yeah, progressive, yeah, management experience. And then again, who do they supervise, who supervises this position, so this is general manager, so I assume that would be the board. And then this one, I had a comment on this
So where
one,
do you want me to put that in there? Like, who they report to? Like, how are you wanting me to fit that? Like, where? It's like,
could be just another little paragraph or section or something like that on the reporting.
okay,
I think the way that it used to read was at the direction of the board, the general manager, it's, yeah, under the direction of the board, the general manager these are the core job functions.
And I can't remember if this next one was on any of the other ones. I think it actually was. So this will apply probably to everyone. And I might be totally wrong. I thought it was weird. It said mandatory for drug testing. So I understand that you're probably gonna do a drug test when you get hired. That makes sense.
Mhm.
But is it like it just made it seem like it was the mandatory periodic drug testing, and I
Yeah.
thought I remembered that the general manager couldn't or something, or shouldn't or something, because you control or catch who does it or something like that.
She removed that from mine because we
Well, I think I
had
saw it on there.
so adheres to FTD's drug and alcohol workplace, zero tolerance policy is what that one should read.
Okay. that's-
So I adhere to the policy, but I am not in the random pool.
So it was on the office manager one, I think is where I first
Safety
saw that one.
sensitive, yeah.
Yeah.
And is that one, that one's a
Soon as
drug
I'm
testing one?
working out
'Cause
We drug
program
test
manager,
everybody but
it's the pool
Cheryl,
if
everybody's
I
in the random
get it
pool.
done,
I didn't know,
like,
and I even put that as a question. I
Yeah.
wasn't sure if that was.
Nope, we're all subject to random testing,
Okay.
except for Cheryl.
Oh, and then the only other thing on the office manager, besides things we talked about, is the duties. Seem mixed between the dispatcher and an administrative assistant.
Well, she
Kind of thing.
is a dispatcher.
And exactly, so it's just, when you look at the core job functions, that paragraph underneath there, the dispatcher core job functions, there's nothing under there that really refers to like being a dispatcher.
No, it's.
And the reason I bring that up is now you gotta look really carefully at the dispatcher position description, because there's potentially a challenge in there in terms of the duties and responsibilities and then the salary.
So where are you looking at for, so she's not a dispatcher, but she uses. She uses the radio and,
Well-
Are we talking to Selena? Cindy?
I don't know, I just, whoever the office man, I'm not assigning personalities to anybody, it's just a position. But it talks about, let's see, where it's at. Answering incoming calls, checking phone messages, providing dispatch and answer radio calls from drivers and assist as needed, including contacting other staff members to resolve issues. Provide trip planning assistance, route information, and other pertinent information to customers so anyway, it kind of gets into.
she does.
Yeah, and so the duties, the core job functions is it plays a critical role in partnering with senior leadership and strategic decision-making as the district resident enhancing or transportation. So there's nothing in there that leads you to believe that she's like a dispatcher or does all these other things. It doesn't match the core job functions.
Maybe remove dispatch out of there and just reword it.
Well, it's probably the core job functions that need to be reworded. Because
Possibly.
she does all of that.
But I would also take a look at the dispatch one to
Mhm.
make sure it's not too
Too
dissimilar, it's different than the office manager one, so that if there's ever a dispute in terms of pay and all of that, they could ask and say, hey, it's pretty similar to this, I should be getting paid that too.
I actually did the dispatch one today and it's completely
Okay,
different. I mean, it
But those are
talks
like-
about ADA scheduling. Like, it goes way more in depth than just dispatch. I mean, I can take out the word dispatch. But I mean, she is constantly in contact I shouldn't say constantly, but she.
fills in occasionally dispatches or some other word that.
Answering the radio
Response.
to the
Maybe
drivers
different
or
words
ask them for an update of where you at, what's your
Replace it.
For the
ETA.
fixed
It's a
route.
dispatch requirement,
For the
though.
fixed
Yeah.
route.
Yeah, and then make it.
that's fine.
Different word. What's a word that means dispatch but not
That's all.
dispatch?
Okay, so we have a problem though, you guys, because she needed to have this completed by 6/1, and we really can't, I mean, if we have all these changes, what are we doing, tabling this, or?
Till the next meeting.
It says that it's due by 6/1, so. How are we supposed, we won't be able to vote on it by 6/1?
Why did we need it by 6/1?
I think that was
in the
part of the
action
action
plan.
plan.
But we chose those dates during the,
I just attach what you got and let them know that it's being modified.
oh, so I did, at the same time that I forwarded them to you, I did forward them to ODOT as well, so that they would know that we
Yeah.
met the 5/1 requirement.
That's all I.
So these are a work in progress, but they're what we have right now. If anybody were to come and say, what is my job description? Well, we have one, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so. We don't.
The only
necessarily have
problem,
to-
the only problem with that, Michaela, is that these aren't signed by the employees, so I guess it would just be a discussion of, hey, we talked about these at our meeting, we've asked for some revisions, they'll be signed by 7/1.
If that's okay, yeah,
Yeah.
then I think we should just table this till the next meeting.
That's fine with me, as long as we have it on the record that all employees will have a signed actual job description by 7/1.
And going into that bunch of detail, sorry, but I just started seeing stuff and then I thought, and then I started looking at the other one and I was like, whatever, I'm just gonna write these down.
Way to go, Mike.
That was the train headed downhill.
I was working on mine. My bad.
He's just trying to help. I promise you.
Okay, I move to table this until the next meeting.
So motioned.
McKenna,
Thank
do
you,
we have
Thank you, Becky, for all your work on those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, way better than anything that we've had.
Yeah.
We will move on then to item 10, project updates.
Who was our second on the motion? To table,
Oh,
Second.
Dennis?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay.
Do we have to have a second one?
I don't know.
I don't know.
She's asking.
We do have to vote on it.
To table,
no, how about the chair says we'll table this till the next meeting?
okay.
Thank
Then you
you.
don't need a motion.
Oh, there you go.
Item
Alright.
10, project updates.
Okay, so I could not go another month without an update for you. So this is the beginning and,
That was a long update.
this is the piece that I sent out right before the meeting, probably about 5 o'clock, that is the 23-25 stiff plan. And, so what I've done is I've combined the information from Sherry's spreadsheet where she's tracking the, each project by task and how much is expended each quarter. So that's the front page is just for project 1 and tasks 1 through 8. And so what the expenditures are for each one of those through the 3rd quarter. So that gives you an idea of what we're looking at. On the next page, though, is same thing. It is project 1, but we're only looking at task 1. And what I did is I did the like the snip and paste into the document from the actual stiff plan that was submitted to ODOT. And so this is where I started finding the discrepancies between what the plan says and what we're doing. So if you'll notice at the top under mobility management task category, it shows a task category of 60,000. However, when you look at the stiff funding, which is the top line of the expenditures by fund source and fiscal year, it only lists 42,726. So this project, if it did not have another option available, would run out of funding. Because the stiff funding, if you were to split it between 8 quarters for the call center match for the 5310, it is $5,340.75 per quarter. And I think where the disconnect came in here is when we created the plan, we still had Mercy as our dial-up provider. And so there was 5310 funding that was allocated to Mercy and match that was allocated to Mercy. There was 5310 for the call center and match for the call center, 5310 for preventive maintenance, and same thing match for the preventive maintenance. So Sherry and I really need to go through and make this, we need to figure this out because what it says we're doing and what we're doing is we're gonna run out of funding. And that is not quite so evident on this first one as it is on others. But down at the bottom in the blue and white stripes is for each one of these tasks, there are outcome measures. And so that's the piece that we report every quarter, but we have not been providing that information to you guys. So the requirement for mobility management is we track the number of people that receive travel training. And the dispatch has not been doing that nearly as well as Cindy does. So I just took the numbers from Cindy's ADA applications because every ADA application that where somebody, is applying for either, paratransit or dial ride, status, she does travel training with them. She goes through the rules, whether or not they qualify for paratransit or dial ride or both. And if you use it, if you're outside of the service area, your dial ride, if you're inside, your paratransit, and this is what that looks like. And she really walks them through it and does a good amount of travel training. And she always finishes that up with, and if you have any questions, make sure you call me. Even if you're waiting for your ride, you can call me and I can answer questions. So she does a ton of travel training. The target amount was only 150 individuals that received travel training during and it's a 2-year period of time.
Are those 2-year targets or are those
Mhm.
1 year? Cause it looks like we're meeting those in 3/4 or 1 year.
Right, so a lot of my targets were reduced. So I put a target in and then I got a question back. Are you sure you can meet these targets? And well, yes, I can meet these targets. Well, they seem high to me. And I was asked to revise them down. And I think that the rationale behind that is for especially seeing as we're going for yes, for the transportation package, they want to be able to show that we're meeting our targets that we put into our plans. And so we don't meet, we exceed. So individuals served by the central call center, that remains at about 350 at all times. Because we have new ones coming on, but we also have, just by the nature of the people we serve, people pass away as well. And then the number of paratransit rides scheduled for mobility management. And we are already at 19,426 in just 3 quarters. So that is a higher number. But it will go down in this next quarter because of the change in the dial ride and paratransit service area. So then when we move on to, did I miss June? Oh, no, I didn't. Okay. In all of the other ones, I put the dollar amount right next to it, and I did not do that. On my screen, they were in the same screen. So that shows you that for the call center match, the balance that is left on that project is only 12,570. And they've been expending between 7,000 and 11,000 each quarter. If we did not have the Mercy Task 1.2, where we rolled the funding that had previously been allocated to Mercy over to fund Reedsport and the call center, we can take that money that was allocated to Mercy, and we can utilize that for those 2 tasks for the call center and City of Reedsport. But if we
Is it
did,
because they were 53 times?
yeah. So if we didn't have that, though, we'd be in trouble of not having enough match for our call center. So then when you move on to task number 2, Mercy Express demand response, there again, this was put into our plan prior to knowing that Mercy was going to end their contract. So there again, this shows what was put in there initially. It was the 42,000 in stiff dollars, 210,000 per year. Well, 210,000 for 1 year, 212,000 for the 5310 that was originally allocated to Mercy. Other state is the piece that was STF prior. And as we go through, you'll notice that there's going to be about $200,000 total of other state in these plans that we had already expended that money. So that's a concern that we need to keep our eye on. And so, but there again, we're not going to meet these target outcome measures because they're not providing the service. So there were miles, hours, and rides and paratransit rides provided. So then for task number 3, again, the plan says that we have 36,000 in STIF funding, but it's only in fiscal year 25. It's not in fiscal year 24. And so for this one, it's City of Reedsport. There again, we had initially intended for City of Reedsport to be fully STIF funded because we were not going to put them on the 5310. But when the Mercy contract ended, the only way that we were able to allocate those dollars was with projects that were already in there. So a purchase service agreement, so that service or City of Reedsport and the call center, because they were already in there, and preventive maintenance, which was already in there. So this is going to cover their match and anything that they go over on their 5310 funding throughout the rest of this next year. And as you can see off to the right, their actual expenditures are running between 1,000 and 1,500 per quarter out of the STIF fund. So that's their 10.27% match for the 5310 funding. And they are, by the end of next year, they will be right about at their target. We used their actual numbers for revenue service miles, hours, and rides. So right now they're at 9,308 revenue service miles with a target of 25,600. And they've been increasing their service over time. The revenue service hours, they had a low last quarter of 370 with a high this quarter or this at the third quarter of 461. And they should be able to hit the target number as well. And the rides, it's questionable. We'll see if they have the numbers for Q3 across the rest of the quarters until the end of next year. We'll hit that 6,800, but it's not guaranteed.
How's Reedsport doing?
They want new vehicles, and so there's, there was that whole scenario. So now I'm getting their titles back to them again so that they can put us on the title as the secondary lien holder so that we can actually order vehicles for them. But I couldn't order replacement vehicles for them when I was doing that because we weren't on the title. So,
Oh, these are the old ones now. Okay.
yeah. So I don't know, maybe they will end up being able to manage to get one of the ones that we're not able to take from the 34248 grant. But we don't have the funding to be able to do that for them. So
Is it the police that's running that program?
they still are, yeah. Yeah. So that is, well, I managed to get through today, but now that I've figured out exactly what I want to be able to see and present and get it all on one page, so I can see the disconnect that I was having, I'll be able to get the rest of those to you by next board meeting. The piece that that is most concerning that you probably need to hear right now is that there are 3 projects, 5, 6, and 7. They are all capital projects. And every quarter, at the beginning of the quarter, when we receive that funding, we are supposed to take that funding and put it off to the side, and that's a reserve. It's built into our STIF plan, and we have not been doing that. And so that's another piece that we have to correct. The bus reserve was expended on all of the buses for all the reasons that we already have discussed. They came in higher than anticipated, and they, we had a higher match, and then we had over and above the grant amount. So all of the bus replacement funding has been expended. And we are in the negative on that. That's correct, 219,000, something like that. So then there is also the capital projects reserve, which that was built in because that was the direction that we were going. So that's funding that we can't spend on anything that is not a capital project. So we're talking about taking the capital project out of there, but we have a project that is building the reserve for capital projects. So that still needs to happen because that's what our plan is. So we're gonna have to fix that. And the final one, it's so bizarre. It is listed in the Optus as coordinated plan, but it is the bus shelter match. So there was, and that's a minimal amount. I believe it's only 10,000. That was in that one for this year, but it had a 23,000 carryover from last year. So there should be right now $33,000 in the bank for the match on the bus shelters. So these are some of the things that we're gonna have to work through and bring back to you and figure out what the end result is gonna be. And
So, on the big capital grants, why didn't we go to the Oregon Infrastructure Bank? On this?
well, so it was indicated during I don't know, we've had so many
I'm
meetings.
not talking about bank, talking about Oregon Transportation.
Right.
Infrastructure Bank.
Yeah,
you
it
get-
was like
you-
3 weeks ago, Cheryl.
Yeah, so I don't know if it was in one of our ODOT meetings or if it was one
Yes.
of our, yes, okay. So it was indicated that ODOT has to give the green flag for something like that to happen. And with our financial status, the way that it is without a reserve, they would not do that. They will
In
not.
addition to ODOT's financial status.
Yeah, they would not recommend a loan through the infrastructure bank for us the way that we are currently. So we have to actually have a reserve, be able to pay all our bills on time, know that we are gonna make payroll and not worry that we're not gonna be able to continue to provide service before they're willing to recommend that we get a loan from the infrastructure bank. But by the time that we get to that point where we've got the NEPA complete, because I'm still working on that. By the time we are at that point, our status might be different, we might get 3 more volunteer drivers and, increase our income in ways that, it's so many what ifs.
Mhm.
So I'm just gonna continue moving forward, but all of these things that have been drawn to my attention now, we have to fix.
So
Okay.
question on the money that we're drawing down as reserve that we're setting aside, what are we doing with that funding right now currently?
Right up until this last, stiff payment that we received, it's been expended on either operations or the buses, but it has not been put into reserve. It's been put into general fund and utilized as if it were available like any other funds. So what Sherry is gonna do is create a fund, a reserve fund in QuickBooks and draw that money to the side so that it does not look like it can be expended. And we will be reporting to you as that increases. So
If you do like a fund, you create another fund and then do a fund transfer.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
deposit it into the checking account, but then I do a journal entry and move it from that checking account into its own, so it removes it from my general ledger, so it doesn't look like we have it, but we
Mhm.
do have it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
yeah. So that's all I have on stiff updates for now, that there will be more and better coming, but This has been a little bit of work getting this one together.
Any questions on that? Okay, moving on to action plan updates.
So this is the one in your big binder clip. And, so following our site review, of course, you know that the board had a special meeting to review and discuss the observations and recommendations that resulted from the site review. And the board voted unanimously to submit the action plan to ODOT. And so there are, for just the ones that jump out at you, number 2 for internal controls, the position descriptions were presented on the agenda tonight, so we met that piece. The Optus report reconciliation, so when we get to number 6 and are going through that, Sherry did a report of unallocated funds, and so
This is what you sent us earlier, I think, right?
yes. And then also we've included the grant reimbursements, or the APRs for Q1, 2, and 3. So you can see the progress, what that looks like and how that's going. And then the SPR, the STIF projects, those reports, which are 1 through 7, and that's just for this quarter, but it gives you that that running balance that's pretty easy to see. So this is for review and discussion. Any changes that you guys want to make, then of course we would need a motion to add that at the end. But I changed the format just a little bit and added a section that is just for updates, because there were a number of things that we talked about them, we were gonna do this, and then the next meeting, we're gonna do something different, so I needed to be able to track that. So the first one, organizational structure. So this is the one that talks about, we've already provided the org chart, and we've instituted the hiring freeze, and the initial budget that we were looking at, that the comment is about, is when we were looking at having to remove about 700,000 to be able to present a balanced budget to the budget committee. So what we did there is the projected positions. And so that's where we were with the comments. That was clear back in March. So that up-to-date org chart was provided on 3/14. On 4/8, the board made a motion to start replacing the transit supervisor. And at that time, the recommendation was made to include the executive assistant in the budget. And since then, that recommendation has been removed from the budget. The board authorized hiring a transit supervisor. And then after reviewing the NEMT actual income and expenses by mode, the decision was made to lay off those 5 positions.
Can we pause there for just a second? Because I was reading through the bylaws and this sort of stuck out a little bit, for me, because of what you just said about the executive assistant. Because our bylaws do state that the chair shall appoint the executive assistant to the general manager as the recording secretary. Do our bylaws need to be changed if we don't have an executive assistant?
Probably.
Yeah.
Just need to
Not
be,
that it creates problems, but I mean, is that motion valid to not include the executive assistant if we're required to have an executive assistant for our bylaws? I guess is
the
my question.
the bylaws don't suggest we are required to have one. It just states that that person is supposed to be the recording secretary, but we can appoint somebody else as the recording secretary if we want to be.
I think shall means that we have to.
I would change our bylaws, because I don't think that was the
I would
intent.
change it to be like the designee.
So
I would
could
just
we
say that-
change that to the chair may appoint the executive assistant to the general manager?
I would just say,
Or-
that I would just.
Or
we
just say
that
the chair shall designate somebody to be the recording secretary.
I would just say that the executive secretary will serve as the as the executive assistant will serve as the recording secretary.
But we
But
don't
if
have
we-
any.
But if we don't have one,
We don't, okay, so you can say, or other as appointed by the
Because,
general
okay,
manager, but I
no.
don't think it's appointed by the chair.
Not to make this more difficult, but then that also means we need to update the job description if the general manager's job is to be the recording secretary. I don't know.
or
if that's-
we could say the chair can appoint the executive committee or another designee. And then it doesn't have to be in a job description.
You needed to be an employee, not a board member, because board members can't pay attention while you're taking detailed notes like that. We tried that. Not work. But yeah, I think it just should be I think you could put it to the general manager's job description. And then you could just simply say the general manager or their designee shall serve as the recording secretary for the board. That would work, and that would cover it.
Sorry,
And that way, when we have one in the future, then we'll be able to do that. And even if a position is vacant, your job description should still point to this executive visit. In other words, all the positions that we've established, whether they're filled or not.
So just to be clear, you want to add the recording duties to the general manager job description?
Or somehow make it that it could be her, or it could be somebody. she
or
designates.
delegate, yeah, exactly.
Okay,
Good catch.
Sorry.
And move on to
See,
Sunday.
this is actually good. Up above, it says the recording secretary or designee shall call the roll. So that's right up there. But I think that it just needs to match.
Yeah, I think it's just make the general manager or designee, and that would
Yeah, okay.
cover it.
Sunday meeting.
And I don't think the chair needs to appoint that. I think it could be just a standing position.
Standing appointment, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think the chair needs to appoint it because we don't need to appoint it every time we have turnover.
Well, I think that might have come into play because initially it was UCAN's executive assistant to the CEO that was doing the minutes in the
Mhm.
beginning.
Yes.
Yeah.
As we
developed-
evolve, these are all gonna be evolved, you know.
All right,
Okay.
are we on to the next one? All right, number 2. So organization, turn the page and I might actually have number 2. Internal controls. So, the internal control policy for the board is our financial policy. And it does say that the board recommends updating this policy now that there are more staff to ensure adequate separation of duties. So the question here is, does now mean now or does now mean later with the other ones that are due in September?
Cheryl, I think now that there are more management employees, when I wrote this up, I think it was now that there are more employees, we should update it, but I think it goes in line with the rest of it. One thing I want to clarify though, when I wrote this was internal controls. There's a difference between internal controls for fiscal responsibility and internal controls for, I guess, more employee segregation. So I know
So-
I know we have the fiscal policy that segregates duties, but I think what the intent was, and I think from RLS too, just what I've heard from Rich and everybody is there needs to be a greater separation of duties between all staff.
Yes.
I was
so what
looking at that earlier and I was like, I don't think the fiscal policy is really what we were talking about, because that does segregate duties for the fiscal part of it, but not
Well,
internal
which is-
controls for employees.
Which is the financial piece of it that they were talking about at the time. So I reached out to ODOT to find out, because it says ODOT uses a series of internal control standards that should be implemented by every subrecipient transit agency. These controls include elements such as sufficient segregation of duties to ensure a system of supervision and approvals for agency expenditures. So it is very specific to
That's
the
financial one.
the
We have
fiscal
all that,
policy,
yeah.
yeah. So that, and I reached out to find out, what does that look like specifically? Is that our finance policy, or is there a separate internal control policy that I'm not aware of
No.
that we need to have? And so that was the confirmation that I received, is that it is referring to our financial policy.
Which I
So-
think, honestly, I think, because we just revised this not too long ago, right? To when Sherry came on board and,
Right, but it is very much out of date. We don't have an executive assistant, and a lot of things point to the executive assistant. There's a lot to it that's not up to date.
okay, which is
It
fine,
wasn't-
but I think it goes in line with the rest of the policies for September. I was looking at that earlier too, and I was like, yeah, that might be, the wording might be a little wrong, but yes, it does
Okay,
need to
okay.
be updated, but I think it's okay to do it in line with the
Alright.
rest of them.
So just so you know, I just asked Becky to prioritize that one. And
Perfect.
then
Sorry. My issue with that is, well, I agree that it's very important. It only applies to a couple people, whereas all the rest of the policies that I just got the handbook, the revised handbook from SDAO has a lot of policies that we don't even have in place that are required by law. And so I'm over halfway through it. I just feel like that's a little bit more of a priority than the financial policy. Because it covers so much and it applies to more larger group of employees than just a few of the specific financial policy.
Well, I think this one's though is required by ODOT and part of our thing, so, you know, to address the audit findings, I think that's why this is a priority to make sure that we get that done. Even though those are important. It's
So-
the financial,
So I can
Stability.
understand this, though. The due date is September 16th.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, when are you gonna have the other thing done? Here,
My days change every day
Yeah.
depending on what
well,
happens.
just like ballpark
I
estimate, like,
mean,
is it gonna be before September?
yes, yes,
I guess that's,
yes.
so my question is, can you complete both of those things and still meet this deadline?
By September,
September.
yes. But what she's asking is for me to prioritize the financial policy ahead of all the other policies in handbook that applies to everybody.
Right, only because it's asked for here. That's all.
this is.
But they
specific-
asked for
it's a
all
specific
policies,
audit
that's where
finding.
I'm confused.
Where's the other one for all of the policies?
At the bottom, it's paragraph 4.
What time did it, when
Paragraph one.
when are?
All
when are those
policies and procedures and business practices will be reviewed.
Yeah.
So these are the same, so it's the
Same
same.
day,
goal.
same deadline.
Yeah,
So I think that, I mean. If it's
I
due,
actually think we've
then,
already got the financial stuff and done, is in place, that's a really
that's awesome that we've
complex and
already,
thick
yeah.
one, I mean, all those duties are separated,
Yeah, we just need to update.
We just need to
positions.
update, yeah.
Yeah.
just a couple pieces. of
But
it.
if this is done by September 16th, I don't.
Okay.
I mean,
I mean, I can start reviewing the financial policy and find the areas that need to
yeah,
be.
can you guys kind of work on it
Yeah,
simultaneously?
and then
Does
you
it
get all
have
the
to
other
be?
ones, focus on all the other ones, get those done.
Yeah.
So, and that was the comment that I put here is, we need clarification regarding updating the fiscal policy. Typically, this policy would be revised by the finance manager, however, direction in this section states that all policies and procedures will be reviewed by the HR director. So I didn't know.
Well, maybe she puts it together and
And-
use it.
Yeah,
a little bit.
that doesn't preclude her from taking
Yeah.
insight from others to make sure that they're
But the financial one is
sound
pretty
policies,
complicated.
but
I wrote it
Jennifer has her
a
hand
couple
up.
times because it was wrong.
oh, sorry, I can't see hands up.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's supposed to be reviewed by the HR, so I don't see a reason, especially, Sherry is the authority on the finance piece, so I think it's well within her job area to work on that financial policy, which she has already worked on. and then have it reviewed. So by the HR. And the big thing with that financial segregation of duties is that it has been a repeat finding on your guys' financial audit. And so that's why it's put in there as a priority, because it has been a repeat finding on the audit. Not just this compliance review, but on your Secretary of State audits. It was 2 or 3 years in a row. This was on there. And so that's why I think they called that one specifically out.
What was the
Thank
piece
you.
on it? Was it just that we didn't do a review or?
It
The job.
is,
Yeah, the job descriptions or who does what when is, I think, the big thing. So just getting that outlined.
And I'm perfectly fine letting Sherry do it.
It
takes one less
is-
thing off of me.
finding 2022-01 source documentation, strengthen controls over financial reporting, all monthly financial statements, bank statements, and all other required documents and reports for the fiscal year 22-23 were uploaded in a timely manner to the auditor's Dropbox after the year end of 6/30/2023. The auditors I don't know, it says the auditor has recently stated that the audit will not be completed due to lack of auditors. This is an ongoing issue for Oregon, so I don't know. Ensure compliance with federal regulations.
I know we had it reviewed and amended. It's probably pretty close. Like I said, it's probably some position stuff in there that organization is a little different. The
And I
position
think
description.
that's why we reviewed it, was because of our audit last year, not this year.
I would point out one thing maybe in there. When I wrote that originally, I set the spending authority levels at the maximum or whatever, give us the most flexibility, because who knows where we're gonna go. And so just, I don't know if those are still appropriate or should be lowered or something. I don't know.
Might have to look and see what they are, because they did change. Yeah. So, on the transitions of duties to, the general manager, I believe this needs to be clarified. Simply because I am running into situations where it is, I am being tasked with stepping out of my boundaries or out of line by directly interacting with supervisors or other employees that don't report directly to me. And I believe that there is a misunderstanding that I'm not supposed to provide information to a supervisor or to an employee. I'm pretty challenged with the situation. So,
I don't know why you couldn't provide information, but.
I
generally,
think the idea behind that, Cheryl, was just that because you've been doing the duties of everybody for so long, that now that you have your management staff in place, that the duties that you were doing before that fall under their job description, which is why it was important to get the job descriptions done, is that those duties now, like the official duties, fall to the employees that are responsible for those duties.
right.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that says you can't. But generally, it should go through I agree with the supervisors and stuff like that, so.
In the absence of that person being available though, and with pertinent information because we've been on a chop, do it now timeline for the last couple of months for a lot of different things that are happening here within this company. And for me to wait until Randy comes in off of a bus replacement or something like that, or maybe he's gone for the day because he's not out of hours. And for me to wait to relay information that is important to somebody who supervises the people who are affected.
I would pick up the phone and give them a call. And just talk to them about maybe what you want to do or how to get that information to them and.
Or send an email and just say, hey, I spoke to so-and-so. Just make sure it's documented.
But it also could be, are you gonna be available? I really need to do this in the next 2 days. oh, I'm on vacation, or, oh, I have these meetings, or I'm not gonna be able to make it because I got to do whatever, then maybe you step in those cases. But I would just have that conversation first to see, you know, first of all, it's his responsibility, but if he can't do that, then there's no reason you can't fill in, but I would do it with an equal understanding.
All right, so there's that. On to number 3.
Natasha
So-
has her, oh wait, Natasha has a,
Sorry to
chat.
butt in, sounds like operations, not policy. Comments?
Procedures, and
well, it falls in line with the action plan, which, I mean, we were tasked with doing the action plan for ODOT, so I can halfway agree with that.
So the next one, number 3, for the financial management systems. We really haven't done anything on this one yet. Sherry does have the name of another system that does fund accounting that she can reach out to for a quote or a demonstration.
I've reached out to them today for a demo. I just have to pick a day and I just need to know who you want to be
so
involved. in.
future SIF project or speaker. Yeah.
Or grant, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now that we know that, that Becky doesn't want HR in the system to include HR, then that makes the process a little simpler too. All right, and, Sherry is still, she has continuously, since she got here, uploaded documents for the auditors in a timely manner. The findings for the stuff not being done in a timely manner. Part of it is that they didn't ask for the documents until they completed the next audit. You know, they completed an audit, then they asked for documents for the next one. You know, so some of this sounds like we have not been doing what we were supposed to do. But in actuality, Sherry has done an exceptional job there's a Dropbox set up and she, on a quarterly basis, she uploads payroll reports and things of that nature that need to go there. She's always, my computer dings when she does a Dropbox, so. So I'm very, very aware that she is doing a lot of the required work before it's ever even due. So that was part of the findings in number 5, 4 and 5.
So
Although,
how,
Is it worth having a oh, sorry. Ken.
well, when will this be complete then, considered?
so we have the auditors say that they should have the current audit, the one that is overdue, done by September.
No, but June, mid-June, they said.
Oh, June. Okay, last I had heard was September.
But mid-June, she
Okay.
said, that's what they're telling me, so.
And
Okay.
then we don't expect this to be a finding again. Cause she is on time every time.
It shouldn't be, but we shall see.
I would
It's
maybe
really-
just ask the auditor about the finding
Mhm.
and just what you're doing, and is there something that they're looking for that is different that we need to do or something, just so it's not a repeat.
Well, even when we had the conversations with the auditor, when we were going over that narrative piece that's at the end. As we were having that conversation, she's telling us, I understand that you guys have already corrected this with the changes that you made prior to us even starting this audit, but because they weren't made completely they weren't completely implemented before the beginning of this audit year that we're looking at, this is still a finding, even though we've completely corrected it. So, they should fall off, but in the interim, we cannot apply for a grant until we do not have these repeat findings.
So
Is there, Cheryl?
Yeah,
No, go ahead, Michaela.
I was just asking, when does this fall off? What cycle is this?
Potentially this audit, right?
Potentially this.
So
audit
it
is
goes from June 23 to June 24.
July to through June.
July
July
through
23.
June. Okay.
June 25.
Fiscal year, yeah. Yeah.
So Cheryl, I guess my question, is there a standard list of documents that they need for the audit? So I guess that would be what that action item pertains to, is the standard stuff that they ask for every year. I guess that would
Yep.
be the deadline for all of that stuff. So
Yep.
if there's
And there's-
additional stuff above and beyond that, that's outside of the scope of this action item.
So they put a tracker in the Dropbox and Sherry goes through the list and uploads everything that's on that tracker.
Okay,
And yeah,
No, there you go.
yeah. All right, so.
easy checkbox.
Yeah. So that was 3 or 4 for single audits, 5 for single audit findings. These should all fall off.
Potentially with this audit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I did put a little bit of information in the comment on that one, though. For fiscal year 19 did not meet the threshold for an audit and was complete as a report in lieu of audit. And then the RFP to engage with an auditor was completed in November of 2020. So that was where our timeline got us behind, is we didn't complete our RFP and award it and engage with the auditor until the same month that the audit was due. And then 2020 happened and everything slowed down, and it was sometimes months in between when we would hear from the auditor. So that should all get resolved.
I have one question on this one, sorry. So the finding for the 22 dash talks about QuickBooks, but we still haven't found a system, right?
Right.
So is this gonna be a finding again? Because we haven't fixed the system issue?
No, with the job codes we've created, it should be okay.
But it does say. Where was it? It talks about this being a workaround in here, and previously they had said that this workaround is basically not acceptable, right? So is there a possibility that this is gonna be a finding again?
Well, so this is saying that, the finding was on the past, audits, where we tried to go back and retro, like I tried to go back and recode stuff. So on this audit, though, I've been coding them with that job code from day one, so.
And they're okay with the workaround? They're not gonna ding us because we're
It-
working
Yes,
around?
it should.
I
be-
think the workaround one is
Okay.
more on the ODOT
Mhm.
audit, not the statewide financial. It's not the financial audit, it was the,
It was the drawdown on the grants.
yeah,
Yeah.
audit, yeah.
Yeah,
It was a different type of audit.
yeah,
And the Excel spreadsheet, right, that we've done
Yes.
away with?
yes.
Yes.
All right, number 6, the.
Sure, you're gonna love it when we get this new program.
We need to.
That's what am I gonna do with all this time?
No.
It's gonna take time fixing everything
Yeah.
when we get the new program. Ask me in 5 years.
So,
We appreciate you.
number 6 is the untimely submittal of grant reimbursement requests. And for the comments, and Jennifer also noted this, that the finance manager has access to submit reports and she has been submitting them. Would think that maybe what they meant in the thing was that the HR director needed access and we got her access
But that's for the
for the approval.
key number,
Yeah.
whatever it's called, yeah.
Yeah. So for updates, reimbursements will be that is, well, they'll be timely and submitted. Reimbursement requests for 3rd quarter and April. So they were all submitted and we have also submitted April.
That's probably another piece of the financial policy that needs to be updated is that Becky has the also a key to be able to do that in the absence of the general manager,
Mhm.
yeah.
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 Quarterly reports will be submitted 5 days earlier. That did not happen this time, but they were submitted on time. Finance manager and general manager met with Drew Orr to discuss discrepancies. And finance manager Sherry's working on changes. And I just this weekend had the opportunity to sit down and start reviewing the unallocated expenses. And so the unallocated expenses go clear back to when we were still working on making UCAN whole. And so the first ones that I pulled up, I was able to locate the emails and the whole convoluted process where they had taken the invoices and split it into three different, like A, B, and C, and then they replaced one with another one. And so I was able to provide her the original invoices, the ones that they were changed to, the email through that process. And when I submitted the report, I had inadvertently submitted the expenses and it was labeled as the invoice. So it had the expenses that were charged against the was the admin project, but it didn't have the actual invoice. But once the report was submitted, we couldn't go back in and change it. This is the first opportunity I've asked
Because
multiple
ODOT
times.
has to open it, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I had asked before to go back and fix things and they said no, once it was,
Well, we were a mess,
yeah,
so,
yeah.
yeah,
So now we're fixing the mess.
Yeah.
So this is good.
sorry.
Yeah. So grant reimbursement requests from January through April are attached here at the end of your packet. And the quarterly reports are also attached. The APR for Q1, Q2, and Q3, and then the SPR for the 7 projects for Q3. So they're all here for your reading pleasure. Number 7, the cash flow analysis. So initially, we had done the analysis on Winston and Sutherland, removing overtime, transferring drivers, all that good stuff. And then and our original date that we were going to make those changes to the Winston Sutherland route was actually 7/1. And so then after meeting with ODOT, they had asked us if we would move that timeline up. So Randy and I talked and we had changed it to 6/1. And then when we had the next ODOT meeting, the concern was expressed and I had a conversation with somebody that asked if we would move it up again. And so that's how we ended up with 3 different dates that we were gonna change the Winston Sutherland route. It went 7/1, 6/1 to 5/13. And I had to get all of those things down as part of our updates. Otherwise, I wouldn't understand why we were late. You know, I start to lose the trail once it's complete. So let's see, they.
So that is done now.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep, we are now running the revised
That
routes.
was 5/1, it was completed.
5/13.
5/13.
5/13, yeah. So then the detailed analysis is what you guys approved, 7A, 7B, and 7C for the, what that would be immediate change and if financial effect that would have for the rest of 2024. We had projected it for 2025. But they had asked for the rest of 2024. So that's the thing that you guys had approved in, must have been our 5/1 special board meeting. And those are the next 3 pages, the 7A, 7B, and 7C that we added with all of the detailed information about how we came to the numbers and what that looks like. And records and report. So manager will provide profit and loss statements, trending variance reports for the board packets beginning for 8, which she did and will continue to do. And then it asked for the general manager to draft a resolution to vote on at the 4/8 meeting, which changed the board bylaws, which we did. And board packets were not provided 7 days before this meeting, and I have no excuse other than we've had a lot of meetings. There's just been a lot. And I couldn't have got it done any sooner, you know, it's just one of those things. That I will make every effort. I'm sure that we will not have 6 board meetings in the next month before our next board meeting, which will make it lots easier.
Well, I think just to this piece too, is maybe, you know, we're not necessarily gonna get 100% of what needs to be talked to 7 days before, you know? Because a lot of times you're working up until this deadline, it's like, okay, well, I just learned something new yesterday, you know? So,
Yeah.
so I think like, there's gotta be some flexibility there, but I think maybe just having.
Target.
Having like part of it, you know, that.
For me, the main thing is the agenda.
Oh, so I have the agenda.
Without all the, you know, if the other materials have to come later, that's fine, but
Okay,
sometimes it's just knowing what we're gonna talk about, so I'm thinking about it, or.
Right.
Yeah.
so with every board meeting that I listened to and went through and created the minutes for, I found something else that needed to be on the agenda, something else that I needed to do a report on or look at or include. And so it was just kind of this ongoing thing. So I did have the agenda, but I revised it, I believe 4 times, which is why the board packet that went out on Thursday had the second page of the agenda that gives all the public comment information. There were 3 of them in the original packet. There was
I
an
will-
agenda and 3 back pages to it.
I would like to add on to that, though, if there is a serious policy that we're being requested to review, to vote on, if there's something to vote on and we
Yeah.
need to review it, I would request that come out sooner than like the consent agenda stuff, just because we need more time to review and provide comment on stuff like that. So I guess the most important stuff of the agenda, I would like to see as far ahead of time as possible.
Absolutely. And I believe that I can do that. This was a lot going through and doing.
Oh, I
all
know.
of
I saw the agenda and I was like, there's 6 meetings worth of minutes in this packet. So I understand that. Because I am a person that
I was actually
prepares
surprised
minutes
at that
for
comment.
lots of different meetings, so I understand that. But just
Yeah.
like policy review and stuff would be helpful to be able to have time to
Have it
review
ahead
it.
of-
Yeah.
Agreed. All right, so then liquidity analysis, and I believe this is our last one. So, and some of this is a repeat of the previous one. Finance manager is now providing profit and loss statement, various report and net position report for the beginning. Oh, for the, okay, typo, board beginning with the 4/8 meeting, which she's done. General manager will work with finance manager to ensure we're maintaining and building cash reserve once established. We will monitor medical transportation. Excuse me, income. Oh, no,
There it goes.
I just lost my place.
Yep, it's gone.
Okay, so, Okay, I think I got it. So there at the end, you can see on the updates that we have provided all the scenarios that you guys looked at so that you could make an informed decision about building the cash reserve. The resolution 2406 was provided for the board to approve in the 4/8 packet. Storage unit was emptied and canceled, researching the lease. That has not actually happened yet. Foot traffic through the downtown office has been received, but I have not had the opportunity to go through that yet. But I will have that to you by the next board meeting. And then number 10, we have a recurring management team meeting on the calendar. We've met 3 of 5 Thursdays. And the Thursdays that we didn't meet was because we had other pressing matters to deal with. And I had the same comment here on transition of duties, and I think that we have clarified that. And then okay, so the expectation has been set that the policies in the employee handbook need to be revised utilizing the SDIS government template, because that will protect us. And the update on the progress on the policies was provided tonight. And let's see, and position descriptions were provided to the board tonight. So I think that is it. Perfect.
Can
So
I have a question about that section, just on policy updates. I know we like to, you said SDIS, is that the same as SDAO? Is that what
Oh,
you're?
yeah, special districts,
Okay, but, and I can understand that they have like really good policies, but I don't know that necessarily we need to incorporate everything from them. So I would just suggest putting the best policy forward based on best practices, I guess would be my suggestion with that.
I think Becky said that there were some that are required by law. that
Yes,
we
so
don't.
when they send me
Yes.
this, like everything in black, I can remove, but anything that's highlighted and red at the top has to be included by law. And there's a lot of them that we don't have in our current handbook that I was like, wow, okay. So, they lay it out very easily, like it's a really great format, but there's still sections where we can, adjust it to meet our needs. And it says, like, there's notes in there that says, this is a suggestion, choose this or this, which one
Well,
fits your
that's what
needs.
I would just suggest catering it to our business practice, our
Yes.
best practices with our business is all I would
Yes.
say.
Yeah, like our PTO policy, like they had a vacation policy, they had a sick time policy, all of that. And so like I removed those and just put in our PTO policy. So there are a lot of things that I can change, but there are certain things that are now required by law to be in.
Okay. I would just say, I don't think we need to follow the letter of the law aside from the legal stuff. I
Don't
think we
follow the
can make
law,
our
she
own
said.
policies.
But this will go through legal.
We're going rogue.
No, I'm just saying, aside from the legal stuff, we need to make sure it makes sense for our business, is what I'm saying.
Right, yes.
all right, so everything following that up till you get to the general manager's report is just the documentation that was requested. The quarterly reports and reimbursement requests, all that good stuff.
I can't read
All
that.
I read them on my phone, so I can. see them.
right.
I was only looking for certain things.
That one is actually, you have to look at it on the computer to get
Okay.
any kind of size.
I mean, I'm a
Yeah.
grandma now, so.
Yeah.
Are there any questions? Hey, sorry, my son's yelling at my dogs.
We all
Uh,
know.
are,
That wasn't me, it was
Are-
Doug.
She's got it.
are there any questions on the action plan? Okay, we will move on to the general manager report.
Didn't this one require
Oh, only if they wanted to make changes to it.
okay.
Yeah. All right, so any questions on the general manager report? These are just the highlights.
Yeah.
Things that took more than an hour, as.
It's like a month and a half or something.
Yeah, and well, we changed phone systems, so that was a concerted effort, a lot of time involved in that. It was not a friendly merger, between Mitel and Ring Central. They forced us to change. We couldn't get out of our contract early. They didn't provide the migration tools necessary to be able to migrate from Mitel to Ring Central. When we finally figured that out, Systech was already like 20 hours deep in the project. And, they, yeah, it was crazy. So we're still
That's what we
finding.
do best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mitigate the crazy, yeah. So,
Doesn't matter.
yeah, so we've been lots of meetings and budget committees and all that kind of stuff, so. Any questions?
A lot of stuff.
Mhm.
I listened to your interview. with
Did
Dave
you?
too. Yeah, yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I didn't stumble over my words till the end. It's hard to speak about raising the fares.
But, you know, I thought it came across well. I haven't heard anything negative or seen anything negative.
Okay, so I'm starting to get the fallout.
Randy's been getting.
Probably on the Dollar ride.
So I had social worker reach out to me today. And he is concerned that his people that are on dialysis and a couple of cancer, he's got the people that are on life-saving treatments. And so like the gentleman out in Glide that he used as the example comes 3 days a week for dialysis, but he's on a fixed income of like $700 a month. And he has a roommate that is also on that same fixed income, about $700 a month. And so for somebody like that, to be able to come 3 times a week, it's $5 in, $5 back. So that's $30 a week. And that's $120 a month just to get to dialysis.
Yeah.
So what they're asking is if we would consider putting into place a fare structure for the Dial-A-Ride that addresses the people that are low income. So
some of the transit agencies in the state, have passes for that and basically, I can't remember what it's called. Jennifer probably knows, but, it's basically you pay this fare until you get to basically the amount for the pass.
Fare capping.
A fair cap, yeah, and then it doesn't cost them any more beyond that, so you'd almost put so if we had like a Dial-A-Ride pass, for example, that you could purchase, for the month, so they would pay until they got to that total. And then the rest of the rides are free.
Yeah, so the other one was when I spoke with senior services. So they had initially asked to meet regarding the possibility of us helping get people to the dining sites. Down in Riddle is a concern for them, and so is Yoncalla. But also, you know, later on in the scheme of things, they're looking at Glendale and Glide as well. And so that's 3 days a week, and they can eat for free if they want to, or they can provide a donation. Most of them provide a donation to eat, but to pay $10 to get to and from the dining site, they can't afford to do it. So they brainstormed with Randy and I a little bit, talked about the senior services purchasing tickets for folks so that they would be able to do that. But they were also looking for, is there some kind of a low income version of what we're doing that we could roll out? That would benefit the folks that are on these fixed incomes that just don't have the money. I mean, they're talking about not eating or not going to dialysis or not going to cancer treatments, you know, because they can't afford the service to get there.
Can I
So-
interrupt for just 1 second? If I run out to my car, will I be able to get back in?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I unlocked it today.
With the dialysis portion, why would that be under Dial-A-Ride instead of medical transport?
So if you are on Social Security, Social Security, you don't qualify for the Oregon Health Plan, and Oregon Health Plan, the NEMT only covers people that are on Oregon Health Plan. Did I say that right? The brokerage, the NEMT brokerage only covers people that are on Oregon Health Plan. So there is this big gap for seniors.
So there's no way to get Medicare to pay for medical transport.
Mm-mm.
I have a mom.
Medicare
Is there a way, Cheryl, to partner with the dialysis? provider?
That's what the social worker was asking about is what can we do? Because he had already talked with Davita. And at that point, there was no resolution. So he was seeking, where can we get reduced price tickets or passes for these folks to be able to ride? And so I don't know if we.
Would that be a
know
partnership with like APD or something?
um,
Aging and Peoples with Disability?
we possibly could do that, yeah, the Douglas County Senior Services is gonna start buying tickets to provide for folks to get to the dining sites. I know that we have one person that does a donation that Cindy has a list of agencies that have requested to be on the receiving end of those donations, but so I gave the gentleman that information as well to get on the list so that he could receive a donation when that comes, because she just round robins the list.
Could you provide us some options and then just bring those back with maybe even a recommendation?
Yeah,
And
Randy should be back, well, he'll be back long before you guys,
Yeah.
before we meet again, so, yeah.
Hopefully.
Well, there is that. Yeah,
So my understanding is that the senior center does receive grant funding and things like that for certain things that they're doing at the senior center, correct? Does this fall into one of those categories of what they're receiving money for? So those tickets that they would be purchasing from us would, I mean,
so
theoretically could be part of.
It wouldn't be for everybody, so we'd have to find a way to qualify people or something to make them eligible, and then we'd have a number
Mhm.
that we could then use to get an idea of what that would cost.
yeah.
It would just be
Cheryl-
nice if we could get sort of that grant funding.
Natasha,
into-
Natasha put a comment in the chat about missing the price.
I don't, where is our chat?
Click on the more.
She said, sorry, I missed. What is the expense per month? And Medicare Part B will cover if deemed medically necessary. However, it is a cost each month of $164.90.
Way more than I think we would ever.
Costs.
Yeah, so the increase on the Dial-A-Ride one-way ride was to $5.
Or something.
As a premier service, because it is typically trips that are longer than 7 to 10 miles. They're usually in that 20 to 25 mile range. And so that was part of the decision when we raised the fares on the buses and the paratransit, and the Dial-A-Ride went up the most of all because of the longer trips. So
It wasn't a required service.
yeah, and it's not a required service, but it's definitely a needed service. So that's what we want to look at, is how do we address this other piece, the fallout from that.
Other agencies must have some eligibility for some, I think, because I'm pretty sure I saw medical something and medical transports or something like that. There's some special category.
Critical medical, like.
Yeah.
There's a company in town called Hyper Transport that does.
They do medical
Medical-
transportation through the
Yeah.
brokerage, only for Oregon Health Plan patients.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So if there
I
is,
knew there was something for Oregon Health Plan, so I couldn't figure out whether.
yeah, but
We'll do
not
it
for Social Security.
if there
although-
is something available through Medicare though,
Can you make the?
and
The
is the
chat.
problem just we don't know how to do that?
Well, I don't know, maybe Medicare, I think you're eligible at 65.
You can be eligible earlier than that. It depends on your disability status.
Yeah.
And it's all intertwined. But
It sounds like Natasha knows quite a bit about that, so maybe
yeah,
getting some more information from Natasha.
I
Yes.
think we should look into that.
And we will have an opportunity to chat about it a little bit in the staff meeting tomorrow. Yeah,
Yeah, I think if we just hit me with the issues, what the options are.
yeah.
Medicare is a pain, but if you learn it.
Well, if we can, apply
That's
the
what you're
rules.
saying. Insurance.
I might be speaking from experience.
Well, with the public transit, it's what we do for one, we do for all. So whatever we decide, it has to be something that can be applied to everyone that qualifies. And, that there's a differentiation between those who don't. So, yeah, we'll get some information to you. All right, and beyond that, I have ridership numbers in here. Oh, I did, gosh. So I did the press release for the position on Friday, but I still have not put it out.
The board petition,
Mhm. So.
sure there'll be at least one person that will apply.
Yeah.
My only comment on your report is that I'm very sad that Drew reached out to me for comment on the transit stuff and didn't use any of my quotes, but used all of Mike's quotes in his article.
Oh.
I know, you had a really good
You
one
had
too.
good ones,
I
yeah.
put so much effort into that because I even reached out to Mike and I'm like, I am not a politician. I need you to tell me if my answers are good enough. And I sent him off and he didn't even use any of my quotes. So
Well,
I was
and
a
he
little
only
butt hurt, but it's all right next time, I guess.
Yeah, we'll try harder next time. We won't let him interview Mike next time.
Yeah, don't give him his name next time, Cheryl, just mine.
He actually had both of your names.
Oh.
He specifically asked for how to contact the two of
I
you.
was shocked the news review was calling around for information. Usually they just.
Right,
take
I
the
was too.
news. Like,
I
what?
thought we'd
They're
be
actually
buried on like
investigating,
page
asking?
3. Yeah. All
Yeah,
right.
you had a
Any
really
more,
good one. You're
any
the
more
compassionate
questions for
one.
Cheryl on her
Yeah,
general manager report?
can we have the application put on the website? I was actually looking
Oh,
for it the
yeah.
other day and I couldn't find it.
Yeah, so
And
I'm having to find it myself. I haven't always had somebody else that did this for me.
Mhm. But it says if they want information to contact you for an application, but also
Yes.
or visit our website at whatever. And the
Yes.
other thing that I would request is that,
I put it right on the front page.
I agree.
Yeah, not
It needs
a
to
link
be
you gotta
banner.
try to find
Yeah.
and
It
dive
needs to be
into.
easy to find,
Yeah.
but also, can we have this run
Yeah.
on Nextdoor multiple times? Because
Yes.
it's like, what I see with city council, they go, there's a vacancy on city council, and they post it multiple times on
Yeah.
Nextdoor. I wanna make sure, and you guys may have seen that this is important to me, but I think it's important to get it out there and give people the opportunity if they wanna get involved. And I don't want it to ever seem like this is an inside deal. If you're here in this meeting, this is the only way you get to be part of this. I want it to go out to everybody
Yep.
so they have an opportunity.
Yep.
Okay.
And we
Thank
can
you.
put it on our Facebook page also.
That would be fantastic. Yeah.
So on your ridership report, I want you to notice that we are over 100,000 in total ridership on fixed route transits for the
Oh, we
first
made that
time.
number in a long time.
Yeah, first time since pre-COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think 2019 was the last time that we hit over 100,000. So that's really awesome to see that. And
I'm still doing.
yes, yes. It is a 40% increase of our fixed route ridership over this time last year. From April of 23 was 7,044, April of 24 is 9,855. So that's pretty good.
Thing to correlate ridership with gas prices.
It goes up, it does, it goes up. In 2008, when the prices went through the roof, yeah. I think when I started, we were at 89,000 in 2008, and by 2013, we were at just about 160,000. So big difference. And then 2013 is where it started to decline again. But there were a number of things that were associated with that, the gas prices went down.
That was when UCAN took it over Douglas County. There was transition. We almost shut down transit.
well, that was in 2008.
Yeah, that was 8 years.
Yeah.
So.
But we also, that was when we had to reduce the commuter route because of they dropped their contribution. Yeah, so that's when Sutherland and Winston went to really reduced commuter route. So that was just the most exciting piece of the whole of the ridership report for me as we hit over 102,000. And a 40% increase over last year. But when you look at the, and I still don't have these as numbered pages. I think it's the 5th page, red line, green line, Roseburg service expansion performance. So this is just the ridership for the piece that we added in the morning and the piece that we added in the evening when we expanded the service with the stiff dollars. 103% increase is what she's showing here. From 335 rides to 1,089.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and that's just the hour in the morning and from 6:40 to 8:15 in the evening.
Definitely demand for that.
People need to get home from work. So it'll be interesting to see how Sutherland and Winston fare now with the changes. You can see that red bar there is way higher right now than it used to be last year. So cross your fingers and hope that it doesn't do a whole lot of damage there. But it was a 47.94% increase. Winston it actually has dipped a little bit over this last year. About 40 rides, I would say, on the average, sometimes a little more. Sorry, one more. The 13-month rolling ridership for Equal rides. They're up to 26,000. So that is also up over previous years. Any questions on ridership? Because I think that's all I got. The very last one is medical transportation. So our volunteers did 815 rides in April. That's it. That's it, and that's all.
Any questions for Cheryl? We will move on to our CODA. Oh. Did somebody have a question? We will move on to ODOT update with Jennifer.
Hello, I'm sorry I'm late. I was on the budget committee for the school district, so I had to go to that meeting at the exact same time. Cheryl, did you mention the POs for the vehicles, or you did not bring that up? So I don't want to repeat anything that you guys already talked about. I just wanted to give an update on the POs for the vehicles.
No, I did not.
Okay. So Drew Orr, who is our finance person, and Joe Heberlein, who is our capital manager, talked with Shedkey regarding the 2 vehicle purchase orders. So I have reached out to a couple different agencies, and it looks like I have all of the vehicles, all the vans allocated. And then you all put some vehicles into a auction, and you're going to be getting some funding back if you haven't already gotten it. And so that's going to be able to purchase that. We'll be able to utilize the PO number 1008, I believe it is, which is the category C vehicle. So you should have the match for that one. So you'll be able to get that. And it looks like it's coming in September. So those POs we've gotten taken care of. So we don't have to worry about the match. So that's a good thing. And the other thing, the stiff cycle is coming up for the stiff formula. And then also the 5311 and 5310 formula. My understanding is that those are all going to hit around August, September. So you'll be getting ready to do that, those applications, and they will be due early 2025. I think I mentioned last time that we do have the conference that's coming up in October, and we will have scholarships for that. So highly recommend folks going to that. And then the only other thing that I had, and I know that Rich made mention of this when he was there for the compliance review, but you know, rather than putting the money into your checking account and not earning very much interest, they do have the local government investment pool, which is the LGIP. It's a great way to earn money. So I will send Sherry that information, and that might be something to look into, because that way you're earning higher interest than just the traditional checking account, and that money is set aside. And then you can get your hands on it when you need it. So I'll go ahead and send that information. And then thanks to Sherry and Cheryl for getting all the information, and Sarah for attending the Thursday meetings. We have a meeting on Thursday just to give kind of an update to my bosses on what all is going on and where you all are standing. And then I did just process all of the payments for the the remaining of the third quarter, the 1 month of March. And then I processed the payments for April. So those should all be in the finance department. So you guys should be seeing those between 7 and 10 days. So that money should be coming your way. That's all I have. Unless you have any questions.
Jennifer, how do we apply for the scholarships for the conference?
I will send the information to you. We have an application, and better to apply early. You need to do it at least 30 days ahead of the conference, which is October 27th through the 29th. And we have I think they're opening the applications or the registration this week. So we'd definitely want to get you guys registered for those. But I'll send that information to you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
It's in Seaside?
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any questions for Jennifer? Oh, sorry, lost my agenda. Hold on. Sorry. Okay. Moving on to item 13, not on agenda. Any NOAs?
No.
No.
Hearing none, we'll move on to item 14, public comment.
None.
Any public comment? Natasha?
Nope.
Okay. We will move on to item 15, agenda build. So I think next meeting, June 17th, we'll want the position descriptions back and finalized. It's the only thing I heard.
I thought we were talking September.
No, the September's the policies, June is to the revisions to the job
Okay,
descriptions.
okay.
We have to update the bylaws.
Yes, update bylaws.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Thanks, Michaela.
Doesn't matter how often we amend them, there's always gonna be something else.
Is Is there anything else anybody wants on the agenda for next month?
Oh, are we gonna be interviewing candidates?
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Possibly, hopefully.
So do we need to have that,
on the.
does that have to be on the agenda? When do we interview?
During
the
our
board.
public
Yeah.
meeting.
During the board meeting, okay, so we should have interviews on there if we're making a decision by. When?
July 10th.
Well,
Oh, the deadline is July 10th, but can we start interviewing early or do we have to do them all at once?
No, we have to do it at the meeting. Has to be
Wait,
a
at the
public
same-
meeting.
You have to do it at a public meeting. It's
uh,
done at the same one.
so that,
We just schedule a time and
July 10th is the deadline to submit.
so I probably meant to put June 10th, so it's probably a really good thing that. I had intended it for it to be the week before the meeting. So that we could list the candidates and provide the applications to all the board members.
But it hasn't gone out yet? Is that enough time?
oh, yeah.
Okay.
It's required to be posted, I think, 2 weeks before. And it has to run in the newspaper twice.
So let me
Well,
correct
for 2
correct
weeks.
that. The press release.
Okay, so in the event of a vacancy on the board, the vacancy shall be published as soon as possible for the term of 2 weeks in the newspaper of general circulation. And on the website, the board will then review applications from all citizens meeting the minimum qualifications required by law or other authority. Decide whether interviews are appropriate, select and appoint one of the application or applicants to fill the unexpired term. And if none of the applicants prove satisfactory, they may republish the vacancy.
And I think we have a set of questions for the board vacancies. We have to have-
I'm working on digging all that stuff up.
So do we have time to put it in the paper for 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Before our next board meeting?
So the public notice, it's generally out the next day, so I can put it in, like, I could put it in today, but it wouldn't get there any sooner than if I put it in the morning. But they'll have it in on Wednesday, notice. So, yeah, we can get that.
So what is the new deadline gonna be? For deadline for application?
We are. So our board meeting is the 17th, so it should have been June 10th. And that would be 1, 2, if it goes in tomorrow, 2.5 weeks. Prior to the, and it'll be on the website, and I will do the next door multiple times as well as the Facebook. I could put it on X too.
And how quickly can we get applications to start looking at them ahead of the meeting?
Oh, the applicants, I could send them out as they come in if that's the preferred method to receive them.
I think I just sent them
I
out one
wanna
time.
see them at once.
Yeah.
I would say at least a week before the meeting, just send all the applicants that you have. If we're are we setting a deadline in our announcement?
It just
Yeah,
needs more
June
clarity
10th.
than one time.
Which would be the 7-day deadline for your meeting packet.
Perfect.
That's why I changed
So
the
I would
date.
just send them all out at the deadline date.
I think so too. I think that's more fair.
Yeah.
So I think everybody should have an equal amount of time in front of us.
Well, it's not that, it's just, it feels funny to have that,
Yeah.
and what if you knew somebody and talked
Just
to them?
exactly,
Yeah.
like
It's-
eliminate all
it's fair.
that. Yes, exactly.
All right, anything else for the agenda?
I don't think so.
All right,
And I think we're gonna postpone the executive session
okay,
to the June meeting. Please, if the rest of the board is in agreement with that.
Yeah,
It's up to you.
I think partly it depends on how many applicants we're interviewing and things like that too, and how long that meeting goes.
Well, that'll be the one after, won't it? Oh, wait, no, it won't.
No,
It'll be the next
yeah.
one. Oh.
So play it by ear. I put it on the agenda, just so it's advertised.
A good idea.
Alrighty.
Okay.
I guess, do we need a motion to postpone the executive session?
Nope.
Or no, Mike? Or is it just my call?
It's your call.
Okay, it's my call. We're gonna postpone the executive session to the June 2024 meeting.
All right.
Get to the important part.
It looks like Jennifer just sent out the, nice try, Mike. Looks like Jennifer just sent out the scholarship information for the conference. I just got it in my email, just so you guys know.
Okay, thank you.
And with that, I will adjourn this meeting at 8:35 PM.